Yo, what's going on, everybody? Xantos Vice here, and we are finally back with Witch on the Holy Night. I hope you guys are having a great day today, or I hope you did, depending on where you're at. Yo, what's up, AZN? How you doing, man? But anyway, yes, finally back with the visual novel again, like I promised. Because, like I said, tomorrow. I mean, I am working tomorrow. I don't know how tired I'll be, because depending on how I feel, maybe I'll do Star Rail. I mean, I don't know. Again, it just kind of depends on how I feel. So yeah, I check my schedule, and this next week I work, I think, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday. So Final Fantasy and Witch will both still be on the same days, but just Tears of Berseria will have to be on Wednesday. And like I said, depending on the situation, either I'll try to do a Punishing Gray Raven stream at that point, or I'll do it on a different day. Or I'm not sure. That's something I have to figure out on my own, but I'll figure it out. Anyway, where we last left off, we had what was it again? Oh, right. My bad. We had checked this hidden chapter, which was 1.5, and it kind of just shows us a bit of like what's been going on because it seems like it's kind of like it's been a time skip since Suzuki had transferred to the new school for the school and everything, and we're just seeing kind of like what's what he's been up to in like the past couple days, as well as actually seeing some of the mystical stuff that is actually going on in the background, but from the perspective of Alice. And I was thinking we would need her perspective eventually, right? Because she is one of the main characters of this. So yeah, we got through a bit of that. So today we will be trying to go through this next episode. To be fair, I kind of like how this is segmented because, to be fair, it's not that long to get through each part. Because, I mean, we go average like 2 hours, 2.5 hours each stream, and we finished each episode by that point. So I think the spacing is good. Well, to be fair, I guess it's more like that's probably because this is the beginning, right? Probably as we progress further and further into the story, probably the chapters or these episodes will start to get longer. Not that I have any complaints, but I mean, come on, we're not really reaching the heart of the matter or anything, or we're not really getting into the specifics. But again, that's fine because supposedly it's like this stuff is happening during the night or when many people aren't out, so it's kind of hard for us to just interpret just from the daily lives, considering it's different from how it was in Fate, in which it would still kind of have some effect, but at the same time, we do have to remember, similarly to like how it was in the Fate series or just the Nasuverse in general and the Mage Association, they're trying to keep the exposure of magic to an absolute minimum. So it's not like they'll be having these magical battles out in broad daylight because it would bring everything basically into chaos because they don't bring into question everything. But that's besides the point. Like we said, today we will go to this next episode. We'll see if we can finish it today. And then like I said, I'll try to figure out something for the next couple days or something because to be fair, we are running out of time before the Karenina uh, new frame comes out, and to be fair, I'd love to see Karnina back in action in PGR. So hopefully I can try to do that, but to be fair, I would still have to dedicate a lot of time to Helentine stuff. But I mean, I guess maybe if I just skip the floating record, because again, if it doesn't have a direct impact to the story, I can't always just save that for later. But they do kind of segment a bit into what happens next. But then again, I could go in with like a complete blank slate and just see what happens if it is main story. I don't know. It could also be a floating record, in which case I could just take my fucking time. But again, that's just something I'll have to figure out on my own. And we did get the Wuthering Waves live stream earlier today for what we can expect in the next update. I didn't actually check it out yet. I didn't really have time to. I'll probably check it after stream and then see what we have to look forward to. Because all I know is like Jing Zhao's one of the newest characters and Mr. Cat. But that's besides the point. Let's actually go and continue with the next episode. Hopefully this doesn't just go to 1.5, because then it would make me feel stupid. Oh, okay, here we go. Yeah, actually it's just episode 3. Alright. Let me tell you how the events of yesterday transpired. On motionless nights, you must never look back. Was it a lesson, or was it a warning? So very long, at the time I couldn't have imagined what my very being would become. One night it came without warning. It was filled with an anxiety so heightened that it made me want to burst into tears, so I fled to my grandfather's workshop. Unlike the grandfather I knew, he smiled and kindly placed his hand upon my head. Yes, the Red Death follows your every step. Rather than consoling me, he sent me home with only those haunting words. Then I was certain that I sensed a shadow lurking behind me. Right, yes, because after work or when he was going to his next job or something, Suzuki had felt like something was amiss, that something was following him. And then he saw nothing, but he just still hurried home. Wonder if it's that same woman, considering there were rumors about, like, if you look at someone and they recognize you, they'll just eliminate you. I wonder if it's gonna relate to that. Something or someone watching me from afar. And little by little, year by year, drew closer. Eventually, the presence that once felt like a spot on the horizon grew. It grew so close that I could feel its breath down to the base of my neck. Of course, it was all in my mind. When I turned around, nobody was there. That night marked the beginning. In hindsight, I later understood the indescribable anxiety I felt was the dread of certain death.
Hey dido dido, the cat and the fiddle, the cow jumped over the moon. The little dog laughed.
How much time has passed since that night? I lingered deep in the recesses of my mind where childhood memories are kept. A faded storybook-esque memory. On dark nights I still hear the faint echo of my grandfather's words. No matter how strong the wind may howl, or how entrancing the song of the girl next to me, I can never bury his ominous words completely.
ご到着ね.
The girl beside me said. Alice's inflectionless voice spoke volume of her role as a bystander. That night there was only me and her. It was the night I would mark as the birth of who I am today. Oh, okay, no, okay. I see. We just moved forward a couple more days, right. Okay. I thought we were gonna see what was going on with, Suzuki, but no. This has to do with, that thing that Aoko was talking about. She said that they had a couple days until, basically, her real day as like a major begin, or something along those lines. I don't remember what the full context was, but I'm guessing this is that day. What should have been quite the memorable night, it sure wasn't a promising start. Dense clouds blocked the starlight above like a black umbrella. Strong wind tore through the sky, carrying the heavy clouds with it. The hands on a clock in the middle of the park pointed skyward, as if reaching for the moon. Unfortunately for them, tonight there was no moon to point at. The winter air grew fiercer as the night wore on. Hailing felt as though it would freeze me from the inside. The air chilled me to the bone, threatening to pass up my spine directly to my brain. To prevent my mind from being paralyzed, to prevent my fingertips from becoming stone, I sparked a fire using my thermal rhythm and emotion. Or my internal.
触覚を譲るわ. 幸運ね。あの位置なら刻んでおいたウィスプが止まる。
My legs quivered ever so faintly. I told myself they were shaking from the cold, but I wasn't so sure. In reality, they may not have been numbed by the cold, but by fear. I breathed a sigh of relief. My humanity must still be intact and my emotions are still present. Before I could sink into a pool of my own sentimentality, the sensations from the bounded field flowed from Alice into me. A transparent wall covered the entire park. An unrecognizable carpet rolled deep under the earth. Alice Cornge's chants of the Mother Goose fairy tales permeated the night. Sensations became one with my body. I felt goosebumps on my quivering right arm. Someone had trespassed. The goosebumps crept up my right arm like ants. Slowly but surely made inroads for my heart. Holding back the desire to drive them out, I waited for them to reach a certain definitive position. moonless night. The park's quaint street lights were not enough to lift the darkness. The hands came to a stop. Far, far from my right arm, reaching my very heart. And without the aid of my sense of sight, I could see the intruder looking into darkness. Starboard in the bushes, about 30 steps back on all fours, beckoning with its right hand.
Soko!
Enemy's movement and my perception of it were in lockstep. I spun around. The enemy's arm stretched out like a spear. Its lethal weapon aimed at the back of my head brushed my hair at breakneck speed. The omniscient awareness granted by Alice's ward, I managed to avoid it by the skin of my teeth. Oh, it's a puppet arm. My hair fanned through the air to defend the violence of the attack. The strike grazed my cheek and I felt a small sharp pain. It felt like the kiss of death. Switched the flow of my body's blood to a different cycle. Blood running through my veins at a few feet per second, transmuted into an imaginary element. My body became a single circuit and my heart transformed into a completely different engine. Within me stirred an unknowable motion of immeasurable heat. Something mystic, yet untapped by humankind, that made me who I am. It was the fire life behind all miracles and fables. What we mages called magical energy.
Setto.
Turned around, set the enemy in my sights, and held up one hand. My arm was the agent of my will. My lack of experience meant my magecraft would only be possible with the use of vocalizations and gestures. Magical formulae were engraved all over the park. All I had to do was ignite them. I needed to direct the flow of the magical energy within my body onto each formula. Typically, a mage acts as a conduit. Whether wired or wireless, the mage simply pours magical energy into the formula, releasing this energy in the form of projectiles, stream, or any number of other methods would usually suffice. But in my case, it was the feeling of my limbs whipping out.
Moera!
I thought speed was speed. The enemy's arm, extended 10 feet forward, became engulfed in flames. It was nighttime at the park. The scene reminiscent of a campfire, but one in which the center of the flames contained a humanoid figure wriggling like a shadow puppet. The flame subsided just as unnaturally as it ignited. No crackling, no burning smell.
結界返すわ。死体を確認するから。
After telling this to Alice, I headed toward the motionless figure. I killed it. I killed it. Regardless of who my opponent was, I just took someone's life. My throat parched, swallowed the truth that without the sense of reality, I would have been helpless. So hard and bitter. Impossible to swallow. But I tried to anyway. I was unnervingly calm. My heart pounded and my breath felt heavy. But my mind was nonetheless calm. By the time I realized it, the charred remains were already in front of me. Bracing for a counterattack, I carefully examined the corpse. Everything seemed fine. His body lying slumped to the ground was nothing but ash. But something wasn't right. To begin with, its remains didn't smell organic. Oh, okay, so she didn't notice that. Well, I mean, I guess it makes sense, because she just acted on instinct. Not willing to believe my hunch, I took a closer look at the corpse's face. All that greeted me was the featureless white face of a mannequin. Screaming, I kicked the mannequin. The corpse crumbled to ash and disappeared with the wind. I think she's just more pissed that it's like she was bracing for the fact that maybe she killed someone, but instead it's like, give me those emotions back. No, this wasn't a corpse. It's just a puppet. And for all our efforts to lure the master out, we have once again been tricked by a familiar. Well, I mean, come on. Like, with one person, it didn't work. You thought with two people, he would just, whoever it is, would just come out in the open? It's ridiculous. My debut, my first test out in the open, would be postponed for another day.
いつになったら一人前にって。あれ?
At that moment, I suddenly noticed something familiar in the corner of my eye. Something seemed strange about the slide on the other side of the park. It appeared as though its shadow were larger than it should be. Was I still drunk on the high of battle? Took me a second to realize what it was.
誰？
Calling out was a mistake. Startled by my voice, the figure wearing a familiar high school uniform took a step back and then broke into a sprint, like someone running for their life. Or I should say, he was doing exactly that.
追いかけて！見られた！
In a rush, I shouted to my partner, but she hadn't even noticed a third person's presence in the first place. Though it wasn't as if I could move by myself. Embarrassingly, the fight had taken more out of me than I'd liked.
ダメ！逃げられる！捕まえて始末しないと！
There was no time for niceties. For us, being seen here was a matter of life and death.
待って、この！
Shaking out the numbness in my legs, I made for the park's exit. I had to admire his escape. The witness, party to the entire night's proceedings, had disappeared into the darkness of the residential district without a
ああ、も
trace.
う結界にあいつの感触なんてなかったのに。
Yeah, because I was gonna say, it's like, if you're setting up a bounded field and it's actually gonna, like, start from one point and then expand out, wouldn't you be able to sense an intruder? Because it would be, but then again, I guess it would be easier to see if someone trespasses on a bounded field that's already formed compared to one that's already set up and just. I guess it depends on how the field was made, like how it was activated. Because if it's just like that they had made like something similar to runes or magic symbols in areas first and then it just contains an area, then I guess you wouldn't sense it because it's already within the perimeter of what it's covering. But if it's something along the lines of it starts from the uh, the center point and then expands outward to the outside length of a circle, then I guess by that point it would you wouldn't really sense anyone by that point. Or maybe you would, but it would be more faint than if someone actually tried to trespass after the formation. I don't know. Depends on how this mage or magecraft works. Complaining to myself wouldn't bring back the figure in uniform. I'm just surprised Alice didn't actually say anything. Or maybe she just didn't bother. Bitter at my own competence, I gave up the chase. Though temporary, the park had become Alice's woods. For anyone within a few feet of the park, our parkgoers' identifiable features and voices became murky, like the stuff of fairy tales. Tonight's proceedings may have had a witness, but if our identities were still hidden, then this was still a chance.
あの背中、男だった。
I returned to the park. The uniform was without a doubt from my high school. That was clue enough. If he was a schoolmate of mine, I had plenty of methods to flush him
に
out.
しても、どうしてこう問題ばっかり増えていくんだろう。
Amidst my grumbling, I set my priorities straight. Before some strange rumors spread, I needed to seal the witness's mouth shut. That was the highest priority. Quickly and without mercy. Looking up, I saw Alice's previously distant figure. Though she was in as much trouble as I was with her existence as a mage being also exposed, she had but one thing to say.
これは困ったことになったわね。
Her statue-like figure staring into the darkness seemed more expressionless than calm. I was pissed off. His inscrutable voice resembled the moonless night so much it made me angry. Wait, what? Chapter 3? Also, wait, what? That's it? That was chapter 3? Okay. Shit. I thought this was going to be a whole thing. Okay. Shit. Well, I guess we might as well do 2 chapters in one day. There's no rule against it. But wow, okay. But I don't think that's the thing Suzuki saw though, right? Because he said like he had seen the woman from the not a casino, but the pachinko parlor, right? I'm guessing maybe he came back to see if what happened that night was real, but now it makes me think like what was the thing about fire that Suzuki said that he saw? Like someone basically like using a flamethrower, which I'm assuming was a fire magic. Was it that it was during her debut that she attacked up? No. Hmm. I don't know. I kind of trying to figure out what that is because it's like Alice doesn't use fire magic. She uses the power of her fairy tales. So I'm guessing the other person, the one in The green coat was the one that used fire magic or something. I'm not entirely sure, but that's the only thing I can kind of think of because it's not like Aoko's always with Alice on patrols, so I guess that could have been the case. Like Alice versus that woman in green before. And then maybe he was like, okay, it's just a dream. It's not actually real. Or maybe the stress was getting to me. He decided to come back to see, like, maybe it was just my imagination. And then he just ended up seeing something he wasn't supposed to. That's the only thing I could think of. Anyway, might as well save this. Damn, so I actually could have just done chapter 3 last time. Go figure. Alright, well, next episode then. Blues in her name. There really isn't any other way of saying this. I'm a magician. Kinda like those witches and fairy tales who live alone in the woods and perform miracles with a wave of a finger. While the popular depiction of it differs from reality, it's closer to the truth than you know. No, just so we're clear, no, I don't fly through the sky in a broom. I can't transform into animals or speak with small birds. Aw. Water mages are nothing but are they're nothing so fanciful. Really? Aw. It's kinda disappointing. Our existence sounds unbelievable, but we're quite grounded. Though it may seem like we can't do anything, we're actually majorly constrained. And while I still have a lot to learn about it, this is my real job. So it's a lot more romantic than being a high school student, right? Well, then again, to be fair, I guess I can kind of envision that because I have to think about like Fate Stay or Fate Zero. When it came to Kiritsugu, he had his time manipulation, but aside from that, he couldn't really do much with it. Or aside from that, right? Or I guess not time manipulation, but he could enhance his own time. I guess maybe that's what they mean by like there were a lot of constraints because it's not like someone can learn like every single kind of magic unless you're like the top 5 magicians like a Zeltrict in them. So maybe that's the case. Naturally, this is a secret I don't just share with anyone. I mean, just do everything in their power to conceal their work. That's the first and most important rule of the association's 10 laws. Not that I'm tempted to let the cat out of the bag in the least. Right, the Mage Association. My secret identity as an honor student is intact, and absolutely no good would come of revealing my true nature. If anything, it'd only lead to more headaches. That's why I do everything in my power to keep it a secret. Of course, if I'd accomplished anything as a magician by now, then maybe I'd see it differently. I fantasize about revealing my secret life's work to a single special person, and I finally make something of myself. Okay. Yeah, it'd be pretty stellar to just confess one day, by the way, I'm a magician. The idea alone is enough to keep me from spoiling that big reveal, regardless of the association's rules. I see, a bit of that romanticism. My grandfather patted me on the head when I shared these thoughts with him. I don't know if that was praise or what, but I remembered his touch was gentle. I first learned that I would be succeeding my grandfather on the day I graduated middle school. When I returned home, there he was. Your elder sister left on a journey. From this day forth, you are the heir to the Aozaki. He said as a matter-of-fact way. Oh. Okay, so she basically got that spot when Alice went to do her own thing? I guess so, because then she wouldn't be able to shoulder the responsibilities. I knew that the Aozaki family passed down this old tradition of magecraft, but to be honest, I never imagined I would be the one to wield it. Magecraft is supposed to be passed down to a single child. It was my sister's role to take the mantle, and I had no interest in dedicating myself to so many rules and routines. I planned to live a normal life. I had hopes and dreams for the future. I felt bad for my sister, but was determined to live my life my way. Okay. Yeah, because I guess maybe this is also in part to why she couldn't go to Tokyo, right? Because she wanted to be in the big city, but for some reason she had to end up here. And again, is it that Alice is actually is I guess she's not his sister, right? Or at least we just haven't had confirmation. Like we know they're housemates, but I don't know more than that. So maybe they do mean someone else, for all I know. And while I managed to do just that for a time, I was blindsided by a vicious counterpunch. Then I bent thrust headlong into a world I had only observed from afar.
どう？
そっちは？
よくないわね。偵察に行けるのは7個ぐらい。ここのところ使ってばかりで作り置きをする余裕もなかったし。
あの夜町を監視していたやつはいないの？町の偵察は完璧なんでしょ、そいつら。
それは昼間の話よ。夜間飛行は危険が多いわ。
Meaning they were of the least use when needed the most. Aoko sighed. Wow, really? Okay. Well, then again, I guess if you just let them out and it's something that she has to summon back to herself, then it would be hard to just potentially let go of pieces you need to use, so I guess I can kind of get it. Oh, by the way, sorry I couldn't read the last couple lines. Someone's in the next room and they wanna, you know. And god damn it, why the hell does it sound like there's a storm? I hate that. Like, it said it's only supposed to rain tonight. And yet all I'm hearing is this rumbling. I just have to hope that's not the case. But I mean, to be fair, at least it's for a visual novel, so it won't take me that long to skip parts to get back to it, so I can't say it's that bad. So I'll still keep going.
そういうあなたは朝は随分と強気だったけど。
ん？ああ、こっちは予定通りよ。明日までには絞り込めると思う。今朝飛び丸にうちの生徒の自宅と行動時間を調べさせたから。あの時間に公園をうろつくやつはめったにいないし、簡単に割り出せる。
そう簡単に行くの？
行くわよ。伊達に生徒会に勤めてないわ。その程度のデータは揃えてある。月1のバイト先はおろか、親しい友人宅との移動時間、その優先順位まで調べ上げてるんだから。人には見せたくなかったリストだけど、そんな余裕ないでしょ。だからそういうのが向いてる副会長にやらせたの。
Ah, okay, I see. Incidentally, the creation of the secret file started the moment Aoko became the student council president. The mere rumor of its existence was enough to strike fear into the entire student body.
そう。徹底しているわね。相変わらず。
Ah, I see. So that's another way that she can like have a leash on everyone, right? To make it so like you can't necessarily escape from her even if you wanted to. I was only mildly surprised. It had been almost 2 years since they first started living together. She knew as well as anyone that when Al could put her mind to something, she saw it through to the end. Which I mean, to be fair, respect to her, you know? She's covering all her bases, making sure that even if there's an issue that arises, she can create a fast solution. Which is good. You need more mages like that. Yeah, I see. So yeah, I guess maybe not actual sister. I'm guessing.
ま、私もあれがこんな風に役立つとは思ってもみなかったけど。ほんと、備えあれば憂いなしとはこのことね。
But what happened last night was far beyond a mere exception to the rule. This predicament should not have been possible.
それより、原因は分かったの？結界の結びに不手際があったなんてのは聞かないわよ。
Yeah, because that's what I'm wondering. Is like, how is that even possible? Because, like I said, I'd like to know how exactly the bounded field works in order to see is there a possible loophole to it. The ward was Alice's responsibility. If it was to blame for last night's trouble, Alice had to own up to her fair share. Alice and Aoko may have been roommates and partners, but it was a relationship of convenience. While lineage had brought them together, they were more like enemies than allies. Ultimately, they were just not a match. When there was a blunder, it was punished. When there was an opening, it would be attacked. If there was even an opportunity, two of them would kill each other in the event of such a moment. Damn! I mean, I figured they weren't necessarily like the best of friends, but damn. But then again, I guess with what we know of, or at least a bit of what we know, of people from the Mages Association like that, your whole livelihood is always at stake, especially when it comes to like theory crafting and stuff. Because if anyone else was to take it and apply it, all your hard work would be theirs, and it wouldn't matter even if you said anything, because at the end they're the one who perfected it, not you. So it would make or break a mage's career. I was like nice with Aoko. Ako's fierce gaze can make a grown man cower in fear. But Alice didn't bat an eyelash.
仮の話だけど、あの結界に落ち度があったのなら、今まで何度もこういう状況になっていたでしょうね。
I suppose you're right, Aoko agreed, as the question reaffirmed her trust in Alice.
結界のあり方は完璧だったのね。
絶対とまでは断言はできないけど。
So basically, it's not something that could just be so simplified to just a mere accident or her not paying close attention. Okay. Alice answered as flatly as ever. Oh, yes, good. Okay, perfect. I was literally hoping for this. A bounded field is like a sanctuary sealed away from the real world. Right, because it's not necessarily up to par with a reality marble, but it kind of works to an extent. If anything, it kind of feels more like when Medusa used the bounded field for her noble phantasm back then in Fate's Day Night. Steps are taken whereby a certain area is cut off from the outside world. There are various kinds of bounded field. Oh, okay, there are. There are physical ones that close off an area behind a wall, and less tangible ones that use mirrors, mist, or trees to conceal that which occurs within. Ah, okay, like an illusory world. I see. Similar to that fog Alice cast the other night. I see. So there are different types as well. I figure, because then it'd be too simple for anyone to just do it, and people may not have great compatibility with specific ones. It's like, if they could do it in another way, is it possible? However, when closing off an area to the outside world, you cannot avoid communicating the abnormality's existence. In other words, the area may be closed off to the outside world, but it's impossible to hide the fact that it's closed off. In time, someone would take an interest in a sealed off area even if they cannot see what's going on inside. Some might say this is putting the cart before the horse. The ideal field would be the one that was both undetectable and impervious to the interference from the outside. That was exactly the kind Alice had generated in the park the night before. Really?
その場所に用があっても今はないように思わせれば誰もそこには立ち入らない。
Ah, I see. Because if you can't get them out physically, you basically mess up their sense of direction to the point where they'll just leave on their own without even noticing. And it's not like they're being controlled to, it's just anything that they try to perceive won't basically be as a result of. Okay.
隠したい場所の周りに一時的な意識の改ざんを促す結界を張る。手間はかかるんだけど1時間程度の人よけには信頼性は高い結界よね。アリスの鏡を使った一級品だし途中で破れることもない。事実入ってきたのはあの人形だけだとはっきり感じられた。これで完璧じゃなかったら何が完璧なのよ。
私もわからない。森作りに落ち度はなかったわ。森は数日かけて栽培したものだし今まで通り信頼できる結界よ。けど例外があったのならどこかで見落としがあったのね。
In that case, if it can't be the area, if it can't be the contents, the only thing it could be is the individual. That's the easiest assumption, right? Because if it's some kind of exception to a rule that you couldn't have even accounted for, then all those measures don't mean anything. At least I would think, because again, if someone was to tamper with the field, like she said, she would have felt something. But that didn't seem to be the case. And again, if a bounded field is something that's already set up and then it's like it should always be on, like even feeling like any life signature or something, she definitely would have at least sensed it. But it's like they didn't even sense the presence at all, right? Because if it wasn't for Aoko with her sharp eyes, they never would have felt it. They would have just disregarded it and left. So it really would have to be on the individual then. But again, this is assuming that this is Suzuki as well on the same day, but I can't really think of anyone else if it was a boy in a male uniform that out late at night like he does for his part-time jobs. But they could be misdirecting us and it could actually be someone else if they're trying to test our intellect. Though Alice's words conceded the possibility, her eyes expressed her confidence that she had overlooked nothing.
参った。こうなると一番いいのはあいつが人形使いだってパターンね。それならかろうじて納得できる。相手が魔術師なら結界の侵入ぐらいできるでしょうし。
I don't know, because again, if the puppeteer is, because this is on my assumption that the things that attacked Alice in that hidden chapter or 1.5 were also puppets, the same like this one. And this is just me making the assumption, mind you. There's no truth in it. But if it was, and they knew that they were going unnoticed, why wouldn't they just attack? Because if they had worked their way to being able to make sure of this, why leave? And also, even if it was somehow a mage, why would they have to leave physically instead of using something similar, right? Using an illusion, trying to mask their presence, but no, they physically ran away. It's much too sloppy, especially if they are at least under the assumption that they're against two pro mages. And again, that's just on the assumption, mind you. Because maybe they assumed that because every time they tried attacking, they failed. So, I don't really think that could be the case either.
問題は侵入した時の違和感をどうやって消したかってことだけど。
Yeah, because it's one thing if he stood still, but like moving around, there's no way. Because that's assuming that they were within that vicinity the whole time, but there's no way. Like, I would feel like even mages have like battle-hardened senses to an extent at least. To at least feel that something else is off. The thought of being targeted by this individual was pretty terrifying. If they were able to penetrate Alice's field, it could only mean that their skill in magecraft was superior to Alice's. Alice in her current state would be completely helpless against such a foe.
その線はないわ。彼は部外者よ。ムクドリはともかくロビンが後をたどれなかったもの。魔力の気配は全くなし。 誰かの魔術で操られている犠牲者というのもないわね。
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because it's like I said, if it was a mage, either they could have taken the moment when they had their guards down to attack them to be like, oh, they're just distracted thinking I wouldn't be here and then actually attack, or they could have used a magical means of escaping. Not necessarily teleportation, but anything from like summoning golems to block the way, or like I said, creating an illusion, but they didn't do anything like that. They physically ran away. No mage would actually do something that basic, especially if you're dealing with other mages, especially ones that you don't really know the full story about, because they would know about Alice, but they wouldn't know about Aoko enough, considering she's just starting out to be a mage, to the point where would they be able to catch them? Would they be able to take them by surprise? Would they be able to beat them so easily, just like Alice had with the puppets? Way too many possibilities of failure in that case. It's such a, like I said, basic method. Aoko was quickly running out of stars to grasp at. That meant she was out of questions to ask. What she could do was call it bad luck and leave it at that.
魔術師の秘密を見られて、おまけに目撃者を逃がしたか。普通の高校生の悩みじゃないな。
Silva groaned as she leaned back. Her gaze went up to the brown ceiling with a sigh. It wasn't much of a view. She was becoming increasingly depressed.
青子、覚悟を決めておいて。
Her roommate's voice seemed indifferent, but Aoko just kept staring at the wooden ceiling.
それとも、あなたにできないのなら、私が言ってあげてもいいけど。
The cool man of girl's statement carried an equally icy implication. Aoko took the words in slowly with as much sincerity as she could muster. It was like trying to swallow molten lead.
そうだ。覚悟なんて、もう決めたでしょ。
The thought sounded hollow, even as it popped into her head. This was clearly different from last time. While the aim was indeed the same, the circumstances surrounding her target were clearly different. She may have been determined before, but that was a mage. If enemies emerged, she would kill them. If she was challenged, she would step up to the fight. It was a fight between two mages and her opponent was in the wrong. Even if this could only end in death for one of them, it was an outcome both parties would accept. Kill or be killed. Morality had no weight on this scale. This time was different. Yeah, because that's the thing. It's like, it's mages dealing with other mages. They know what they're doing. Because it's similar to those who go to the extremes with their research, even knowing that morally it's wrong and everything. It's like, it's their livelihood or their lives over their competition, their enemies, their rivals. That's just how cutthroat the magic world is in the Nasuverse. Like Sakura's grandfather, or like that familia in Fate Apocrypha with all the homunculi and stuff. Her opponent was neither enemy nor mage. Even if she was prepared to kill them, this person was likely not ready to die. That's where morality did factor into it now. Was she truly up to the task of murdering an innocent person? She swallowed the fact that this was a common occurrence for a mage? She snorted sardonically. Being a mage did not mean that Aoko has some kind of monk who could cut ties with the real world on a whim. There was one thing Aoko hated. It was doing things without conviction or an understanding of exactly why she was doing them. When she acted, she preferred to act decisively.
うん。ま、やるしかないだろうね。
As she said, she got up from the sofa, having had her fill of the ceiling for one day. I could return to the Aoko of always, and Alice was done probing her.
じゃあ、これ。
As if to reward her, Alice produced a small bottle. It fit neatly in the palm of her hand. The bottle looked completely out of place in her slender fingers. The glass was cloudy and it appeared empty. Some shreds of paper remained in the front that was once a label.
何よそれ。
I could stare at the bottle suspiciously.
収納の小瓶。ちょうど一つ余ってたから あげるわ。
はい。
名前は忘れたけど、中国の小説に出てきたのと同じよ。
Hmm. Ako's miraculously able to parse what Alice meant.
それってレンゲ堂の兄弟の話？じゃあ、あ
Oh,
の赤いひょうたんと同じなわけ？
I see. I think I
言
get
い
what
た
you're
くな
going.
いけど、そこら辺の風邪薬のラベルを無理やり剥がして小瓶に見せかけてるそれが？
Yeah. Is this like a? Is this like an everyday substitute? Alice looked at the bottle and acknowledged how ordinary it looked. She also understood that she would not be the one using it as she set it on the table.
赤いひょうたんじゃなくて、陽子玉の上瓶の方。
The comedic one, this one.
そういう問題じゃない。私は魔術師としての雰囲気を論じてるんだ。
Yeah, she's like, I don't want to look like an amateur in front of the other mages.
些細なことを気にするのね。せいろがんの瓶じゃないだけいいと思うけど。
Oh, no, that's going far. She made a good point.
蓋を開けて相手の名前を尋ねればいいから。
So yeah, it is similar to like the one where you can seal people in a jar, kind of like how Master Roshi attempted to do with the evil King Piccolo, and like how in Naruto, his twin brothers like Kinkaku and Ginkaku or whatever were sealed up in that one gourd and during the Great Ninja War, I think. So I see.
ただし、相手に抵抗する意志が残っている場合、小瓶は割れるから気をつけて。
So she has to take him by surprise. I mean, it makes sense. Depending on how strong the will, they could break out of it. Like I said, Demon King Piccolo was completely sealed. We saw what that led to.
ちょっと待った。抵抗する意志があるとダメって、眠っている時にやれってこと？
That'd be a pretty weird way to go about the process.
それは試したことがなかったわ。
Well, you shouldn't, period.
眠っているのに返事をする人っているの？
たまにいるけど。まあ、確かに珍しいわね、そういう人。
Yeah. In that case, one will have to weaken them until they were about to pass out.
そうそう。薬や魔術がかかっていると、その重さでも割れるから気をつけて。
Huh?
使えない。それってほとんど役立たずってことじゃない。
I see. Wow. So you can't use anything on the person to make them restrained either to the point of using it because that affects it. Really? Wow, that's very fragile. But then again, I guess it's like they said initially, right? Magecraft can do something spectacular, but it comes with a lot of constraints.
それは青子次第ね。
Wow. Cold-blooded. That's the way she replied. As if the topic no longer mattered to her.
はあ、アリスがこういう小道具好きなのは知ってたけどね。これも趣味なわけ？
多分。それでどうするの？持っていくのか行かないのか。
Without answering, Aoko divvied a bit before taking the bottle and putting it in her pocket. She figures she might be able to find some use for it. I swear to God, if this is the end of chapter 4. 2 hours had passed and the clock struck 9. The conversation had moved from the drawing room to the sunroom, and had manifested into the kind of scene one would not expect in such a mansion.
まあ本当はね、飛び丸に任せる気はなかったんだけど。
Hot earthenware pot sat on the table. Aoko spat out complaints to no one in particular. She plucked food from it with her chopsticks. Tonight they were eating a traditional Japanese meal that looked out of place in this mansion. When it came to the kind of Japanese hot pot where all one had to do was buy and boil ingredients, it was usually Aoko's responsibility. I sat across from Aoko as she silently poked at the pot with a fork.
山城のやつが来るなり、しずきくんはまだ部活に入っていないから面倒見てあげてくれないかな、なんて言ってくるもんだからさ。
The egg she had plucked was still as silky as... So she returned to the pot. She set it over the shirataki noodles instead.
そりゃ、あのバカがバイトで忙しいのは知ってるわよ。 だからできるだけ春先までのんびりしてて、あんなのでも親身になってくれそうな部の部長に当たってみたのに、ありがとうの一つもないってのはちょっと尺に触るわよね。ねえ、聞いてるアリス。
As if her mouth was full, she simply nodded in response. Expression stated she had no interest nor opinion on the matter, but she at least appeared to be listening. Satisfied, Aoko nibbled on some hand-pinned fishes.
それに私、いい人なんて言われるやつは信用できないのよ。あろうことか、飛び丸までそんなこと口走る始末だし。あれはいい人なんじゃなくて、ただぼんやりしてるだけなんだっての。
How's it going? I ran into some weird debates yesterday. Ah, okay. I'm doing alright reading Yuri F. Just going through the visual noveling again.
だいたいあそこまで言われて怒りもしないなんてどうかしてるわ。
Thoughts went to what had happened in the student council room earlier that day. She remembered how non-responsive Sojiro had been to her words. His unconcerned face alone was enough for her to swallow the rest of her hempen without chewing it. Oh, okay, yeah, so this does take place a couple days after. I figured, because I was like, I don't think it would be the same day.
何が分かってるんだなよ。
His words were a lot like those that had entered her childhood.
青子ちゃんは分かっているんだね。それでも自分であり続けられるということはとても強いことなんだよ。
Perhaps it was meant as a compliment, but she took it as a patronizing way to pity her, because the person who said it had acted like she was looking at a wounded animal.
あんな変態の言ってたことなんて今さらどうでもいいけどさ。
I'm assuming she means her older sister. That episode might have made her the most confused she had ever been in her life. Yet what shocked young Aoko, or the most, was the look of pity on the face of the person she admired the most.
喧嘩
It broke common stopped her in her tracks.
ごめん、聞いてなかった。喧嘩ってあの喧嘩？
あなたの感想だけじゃ状況はよくつかめないけど、つまり青子はその人に喧嘩を売りたかったのね。
Oh, get that. I was bit into the very last handpin. Her remark was unexpected, but completely on point.
なんでそうなるのよ。私はあんなのと1秒だって関わりたくないだけだってば。だいたいそれどころじゃないし、興味とか全くないし、会話もこれ以上ないってぐらい簡潔に切り上げたし。
ならどうして今そんな話をするの？
それはあんたに今日の調査過程を知らせてあげたのよ。それ以外何があるっていうの？
Whatever reason could Alice be suggesting Aoko had for bringing it up? It'd be several hours later in bed that Aoko realized that she had dug her own grave.
いいけど私は別に。ただ青子は本当にその人が嫌いなの？
Alice ate her hot pot in silence as if she was honoring some sort of sacred ritual. Her face was as indifferent as always. She was secretly enjoying how flustered Aoko was. Aoko remained oblivious to this. Normally, she would have noticed immediately, but she wasn't quite herself at this moment.
本当にって、そりゃそうよ。気に食わないって何度も言ってるじゃない。
そう。具体的には？
は？具体的にはって、そんなのに理由なんて。
She'd come up with no reason why. Her instincts had told her that she was incompatible with that hick. But why such a strong reaction? More than anything in the world, Aoko hated emotions without reason or decisions made with no rationale.
嫌いなものは嫌いなんだから、ちゃんとどっかに理由があるんだと思うけど。
She became more flustered the more she talked. Unfortunately for her, she could not come up with a coherent reason to hate Sojiro Suzuki. It wasn't his fault that he had zero common sense, it was the fault of the environment he grew up in. In fact, it was admirable that he was trying so hard to adapt to civilized society. As clueless as he might seem, he wasn't a complete waste of space. If he seemed a bit slow, it was only because his gentle nature compelled him to think before acting. When one looked at everything objectively, the conclusion was obvious. As much as she was loath to admit it, he really was unassuming do-gooder everyone had pegged him as.
ちょっと本気かっての。人間的に悪いところ、本当にみじんもないのかあれ。
An irrational hatred burned through her head. Unable to come to terms with her feelings, she desperately tried to analyze Sojiro, but her mind only went in more circles. Alice fixed Aoko with a deadpan stare.
呆れた。らしくないわね、青子。
Those words were the final blow. Aoko felt the floor fall out from under her. She was unable to leave her chair until long after Alice had finished eating and left. However, even after getting knocked down, Aoko Aozaki was not one to be kept that way. She made short work of clearing up after dinner, and after conceding the first bath of the night to Alice, left the drawing room. Since it was customary in these sorts of mansions to turn the lights off when leaving an empty room, the only lit areas of the house were the drawing room and the two girls' bedrooms. The upstairs was enveloped in darkness. Aoko briskly made her way to the deepest part of the east wing along the long corridor, illuminated only by the light of the moon, and arrived at her room.
結論として、やっぱり騙し討ちは気に食わない。
She'd been considering this on the way down to the corridor, or perhaps ever since she left the drawing room. The moment she entered the room, she drew a proverbial line in the sand.
やるにしても隠れるのはなし。正面から堂々と向かい合って理由を言う。
This wasn't a concession driven by feelings of sympathy or compassion. For her, this was simply the way things ought to be.
よし。そうと決まれば。
After settling her resolve, she headed to the study next door.
木曜棚の当時欄、緑の背表紙とは。
Without hesitation, she removed one book from the countless volumes on the shelf. The introductory textbooks transported here from the Aozaki residence were separated into 6 shelves, labeling Monday to Saturday. Aoko had organized the books by topic, genre, and purpose, and had more or less memorized exactly what was in her personal library. Referencing any of the material took her no time at all. It was to be expected from keeper of the study, though this keeper's fiefdom was nothing more than a small room. Aoko and Alice had given up all hope on the cluttered mess of a library in the annex. Nevertheless, on occasion, Aoko would have no option other than to give Alice a heads up and visit when this study did not meet her needs.
できればそれは避けたいところだけど、と。
Aoko placed the thick green book down and took a seat. The desk she sat at was sturdy but uninviting. It wasn't the sort of furniture girls her age grew attached to, but she liked its minimalist elegance nonetheless. She slipped lightly through the book's old worn pages.
アリスみたいな結界は私にはまだ無理だ。人払いはその場所自体に頼らないといけないか。
The mountains? The woods? School building empty at night? She was looking for a place that would be, except for the worst of luck, for the people, allowing her to forego the use of magecraft.
茨の壁だの魔力の霧だの。そういう回りくどいのもなんだしな。退路を断つっていうなら、もっとこう見た目にも状況的にも派手な方が効果的だし。
Wondering about had there had to be some basic spell that fit her needs, she continued to flip through the pages. It goes without saying that she was looking for a way to deal with the witness for the previous night. Magecraft uses were many, but not all encompassing. Fundamentally, Magecraft was good for making things a phenomena that existed already, while more or less bypassing the time and resources conventional means require. It was, however, unable to manifest phenomena that were impossible in this world. Yeah, because that's the thing, it's like, again, can't do anything like in the super fantasy stories. It was essentially an equivalent exchange that used a variety of shortcuts. A phenomenon made possible by human hands, actualized by an individual's power. That was generally what Magecraft was. To give a simple example, if Aoko were so inclined, she could make an entire lake appear at the mansion. However, it had to be something that existed within this world. Nothing, not even the smallest matter, could escape this unbreakable law. Okay, so it kind of has to have like the possibility rather than just creating a random possibility. Even if Aoko were to release a level of heat on par with an F-15 fighter jet's afterburner, that event would only be possible if the circuit named Aoko Aozuki acted as a temporary input variable into a magic formula. The derived equivalence was simply a value that already occurred in reality. If the variable in the equation did not exist elsewhere in reality, the spell would not be valid. I see. Oh, I see. So this is a kind of like a, what was it called? Was it Golden Blood or something? The one with Battle Tsushinomiya, right? Damn it, what was the name of that series? The one with like the gore and stuff like that, with the whole mystery. Damn it, it's like Umineko or something, right? Like about the Golden Witch Beatrice, I think. Yeah, because it's like the point was like to solve a mystery that it's like to prove that this this means wasn't possible through magic, but that it could actually physically occur in the real world following the rules, right? So I guess it's kind of the same, but that's kind of more of a disproving of magic. Well, anyway, I hope you guys understand what I'm trying to reference here. The imaginary element known as magical energy was like a line that could only slip its fantasy through the network of order at the moment of ignition. Giving form to the non-existent, illusions evading reality, was something the universe did not allow. I see. That's why it's like you don't really hear a lot of success from mages, and that's why any breakthroughs they come up with are a lot more valuable than we could comprehend, because again, it's like it's something that hasn't been proven till now, but it's like that means the possibility always existed, but this person was the only one able to reach it.
とは言ってもエーテルは基本何にでもできるんで大元が嘘なんだっけ
Seriously, I love Aoko's expression is the best.
魔力だけで構成されたものは幻想扱いされて急速に消えていくとか典型的な結界茨の壁とかはもともと茨を生やしておいて魔力で一気に成長強化してるものだし魔力っていうのは結局使い勝手のいいガソリン兼事象に火をつける火花ってわけで
Oh, I see. So that's what she meant by like the whole thing about when Alice said she was raising the trees, right? She was physically making a physical barrier. Kind of like how hiding amongst the trees or something, right? There's an expression like that. This would be akin to that in reality. Okay. I guess I'm starting to get a better grasp of what these phenomena physically actually are.
なんて言いつつ架空要素云々より基本的な回路の接続と魔力を加工して弾くことぐらいしかできないのよね私
Laughing to herself, she looked for a bounded field or something somewhere more suited to her current ability. The identity of the witness was still unknown, but if they were a classmate of Aoko's, she had any number of pretexts by which to lure them out. The problem was after that. Oh, I see. Because I was like, what, she gonna hope that they somehow find her when she's doing magic somewhere else? No, she's gonna create a scenario for them to meet her.
そうなると問題は命中率よね 一撃で決めないと逃げられちゃうだろうし。
To be honest, she wasn't confident she could handle this smoothly without Alice's support. But Aoko saw no reason to ask for help given the target in question was a regular bystander. Fledgling as she was, she still had her pride as a mage. She continued to turn through the pages rhythmically. In the midst of the fluttering sound of thumbing through the volume, Aoko suddenly stopped her finger at a certain page.
見つけた。
It was a simple formula that she had tucked away somewhere in the recesses of her memory. A spell of simple destruction.
檻をね、作ればいいのよ。狩りをする時の常套手段じゃない。獲物を逃げられないようにするのは。
She placed a bookmark in the book, closed it, and got up to return to her room. Suddenly, she felt someone watching her. Through the window, she saw her in the night, the girl staring back with a cold-hearted expression. The girl's face was hers, the expression undoubtedly her own. She began planning how to erase the witness. Though to say it was something as elaborate as a plan was overkill. This was just a job. She was gonna make a cage and then lure her prey into it. There was no getting around it. Premeditated violence.
さ、そろそろアリスは上がったかな。
About 20 minutes had passed and she gave Alice the privilege of using the hot water first. Alice tended to bathe quickly, finishing well under 10 minutes. Her roommate was the type that could not understand the spirit of the bath, treating it as nothing more as a necessity for looking after one's body. For Alice, the concept of staying at a hot spring inn sounded more like a chore than anything. Though in this regard, Aoko had to agree.
よし、浴場はカラッと。あれ、今に電気ついてる？
It was unusual for Alice to sit in the drawing room after a bath. On nights where she had nothing to discuss, it was her style to return directly to her bedroom.
アリス、いるの？
No book in hand, it appeared that Alice had been waiting for Aoko.
そういうこと。私も信用ないな、ほんと。
She scratched her head in exasperation. Was it that Alice was worried about her, or had no faith in her? The expression was so calm, Aoko could hardly figure what she was thinking.
方針なら決まったけど、聞く？
その顔を見れば聞かなくてもわかるわ。迷いがなくなったのはいいことだけど。悪い癖ね、青子。
Alice let out a small sigh. It wasn't usual for Alice to make such a display of her own disappointment.
ええ、騙し討ちは趣味じゃないから。殺すにしても正々堂々、正面から理由を言った後にする。それならすっぱり後腐れもないし。文句ある？
文句はないわ。そういうの、好きか嫌いかはこの際関係ないでしょうし。けど
確実性はどうかってことでしょ。私いまいち命中率悪いし、その辺の問題は場所選びでフォローしようかなと。私はアリスのようにはいかないから、物理的に逃げられない場所にしようと思うんだけど、何かアイディアない？
Alice nodded in thought. The finger that gently rested on her lips indicated that the question was to her liking.
鏡はどう？鏡の国なら永遠に閉じ込めていられるけど。
But could she do something that complex, though?
あんた、そういうところ常識ないわよね。
She found out Alice's bad taste. It was the kind of idea her roommate found to be inspired, but Aoko knew was out of the question. Aoko was looking for a natural battlefield she could prepare, not a realm bordering on true magic that she couldn't create to begin with. Ah, okay, so she was trying to give like a surefire way, but again, it's like, from what I understand, true magic is practically like on another level, so wouldn't be possible.
なら他を当たるのね。でも、ここを使うのだけはやめてちょうだい。
Well, I mean, obviously.
言われなくても分かってるって。 けどそうね、ミラーハウスはいいアイディアかも。サンキューアリス、全体の流れは出来上がったわ。ほんとこういうのってダメ元でも相談してみるものよね。
Now in a good mood, Aoko retreated to the drawing room, or from the drawing room. I was trying to fail to visualize what kind of blueprint Aoko had drawn up in her mind, but whatever it was, it appeared to be a thorough kind Aoko was good at. Aoko headed for the bathroom, humming to herself as she went. A year and a half of sharing a living space had taught Alice something. When Aoko Aosaki was in this good of a mood, only deep trouble could follow.
青子一人に任せていいのかですって。
It was unclear how long the bird had been in the drawing room. Tripping at Alice, the robin-like bird pranced across the furniture as if it were its property.
そうね。彼女が一人でやると言ったのだから任せるのが正しい信頼関係なんでしょうけど。
The bird, tripping once again, alighted on her outstretched affectionate finger.
嫌な話だけど、信頼と信用はまた違う話よね。
The bird puffed out its out chest in agreement, and Aoko was none the wiser to her roommate's rather unsettling comments. Okay, good, we skipped. I was thinking it was gonna try to do like a fan service thing. I'm like, please no, I'm not trying to get cancelled. I don't want to have to edit the video for some random ass reason. The following day was a typically overcast one. The day's classes ended as they had started, uneventfully. Winter break was just around the corner, with it, final exams. Although Misaki High prided itself on discipline, it was still a private school which promoted a culture of independence among its students. Thus, students had a place to explore that side of themselves under the guardianship of the student council president. More easygoing students could spend their time after school as they wished, as long as they were mindful of personal responsibility. The fact that the poster boy Independence was the student council vice president indicated just how vast the spectrum was.
Aozaki, iru ka?
Tobimura Sakuji threw open the door to the satellite student council room, a rumored location for their secret meetings. Despite all appearances, he was the student council vice president, who also happened to be the poor soul responsible for executing the student council's dirty work. One person was waiting for him in the cramped room. Student council president Aoko Aosaki sat imperiously in a folding chair, glaring at Tobimura in his boisterous entrance.
相変わらず寒いなこの部屋。なあ、今度ストーブ購入しようぜ。
So as not to succumb to Aoko's oppressive silence, Tobimura opened with some casual small talk.
お疲れ様。ところであんた、何しに来たのか分かってる？
まあな、ただ事務的に話すのって寒いじゃねえか。少しぐらい世間話でもしねえとつまらねえだろ。
こういう時は無駄口は叩かない方がいいわよ。なんとなくプロっぽいでしょ。
なる。いや。
Tobimura was halfway to agreeing with Aoko before he caught himself and began to shake his head. As much as Tobimura enjoyed the lack of red tape in his new line of work, he wasn't ready to turn full spine his first day on the job.
それで調べ終わったの？
ああ、ついさっき最後の聴取を済ませてきた。詳しいことはその封筒に入ってる。
He tossed the envelope on the table.
そう。
Aoko picked it up and began to scan through the documents that were inside. She entered her own little world, not sparing the slightest bit of attention for Tobimura. If ignoring other people were a skill, she would be a master at it.
なあ。
何？
一つ聞きたいんだけどよ。
だから何？
The room was filled with chilling silence. Aoko continued reading without an ounce of emotion upon her face. Though Tobimura kept up an air of indifference, his stare remained fixed intently on her.
青崎、そういうの作って楽しい？
楽しいわけないでしょ。こんなの作ったところであんまり使う機会なんてないんだから。
そうか。ならいい。
Whether or not he was convinced, Tomimura stood up from his chair with a disappointed expression.
最後まで読めばわかるだろうが、あんまり確証は取れなかったぜ。というより、おとといあの辺りにいた生徒はいないって話になりそうだ。まあ断定はできないけどな。
No longer concerned over his task, Tomimura headed toward the door. As if to say this was out of his hands.
そうだ。そういえば、一人だけ該当しなかった奴がいる。季節外れの転入生までは、青崎も調べきれなかったみてえじゃねえか。
Aoko raised her head ever so slightly. He was right. The recent transfer student wasn't included within the scope of her investigation.
そんなわけで、その字に関しては調べてないぜ。ま、あいつならいつだろうと遅くまでバイトだろうが。いや、人殺しを見たなんてこと口走ってるようじゃ、家で悪い夢でも見てたのかもしれねえか。
Simultaneously, Aoko felt her fingers go numb, and the document she was holding spilled all over the table.
そんな、まさかね。
She broke out in a cold sweat and tried to tell herself that there must be some kind of mistake. However, the uncomfortable feeling in her gut would simply not go away. Perhaps because her intuition was almost always right at times like these. Yeah, it's like he's the only one.
バカらしい。
Ah, okay. Yeah, so it's like she's assuming what that little hint of what's it called? Suzuki had told Tobimaru was that, but it wasn't. It was the other thing. I'm assuming he didn't tell Tobimaru of what happened today or yesterday, but still, she knew what she had to do. She wouldn't have hesitated to kill Tobimaru if he had been the witness. What if it was who she was thinking of? Just considering the possibility caused her blood to run cold. She put her forehead in her hands and began to brood. Then suddenly, let's talk choice. You will always be faced with choices. Virtuous fool and a wicked sage. You cannot save both. You must pick one. That is the freedom granted to you. 2 years earlier, Aoko muttered the words offered by her grandfather the day she replaced her elder sister as his successor, and outside lament.
すごくバカみたい。
She laughed at her own intuition, but it was no joke. If only those words had never been said. Aoko locked up the student council room and left for the day. Calmly, as though nothing outward had happened, she greeted the students as they passed her in the halls. I was almost shocked by how natural she seemed. There were still plenty of students at the school. The grounds were noisy with the chattering of students who had finished the day but had yet to head home. Others still had club activities. Gray sky looked ready to pour, but nobody seemed to pay it any mind. As the clamor, Aoko hastened to the school gate. She passed by some students in animated conversation. They seemed to be talking about their after-school plans. Apparently, they were adamant about maximizing their free time. She couldn't figure how they could possibly be so irresponsibly focused on fun. At the same time, was in no mood to make fun of or feel envious of them. 2 short years prior, she had been just like
目
that.
は覚めてるのかな、私って。
She retied her scarf, this time more tightly, to give off an air of solitude. But she was fooling no one. After all, what people who feign solitude are really masking its rejection?
そうよね。孤独っていうのはああいうのを言うもんでしょうし。
The area by the school gate was busier than usual. A group of boys appeared to be huddled behind it. The transparent attempt to be discreet in terms of both location and loudness of voices did nothing to hide the fact that they were noisily arguing about a girl standing alone on the other side of the street. Ah. Right. Yeah. Forgot. Yes. The girl was cloaked in a black cape. At first glance, it could have been mistaken for normal attire, but it was from Misaki could tell that she wore the uniform of prestigious girls' school. Wait, this is their uniform? I thought this is just what she wore. Said school had no connection to Misaki High in any way, shape, or form. Two schools were miles apart both physically and spiritually. Remember that school student body was a rare sighting, as the majority were forced to live in the school dorm. Ah, yeah, I mean, it is a girls' private school. Ryan Girls Academy had a reputation as a school for princesses. It was rare indeed for one to be slumming with the common folk. That alone would have been enough to cause the ruckus among the boys. But this girl looked the epitome of class. One couldn't help but describe the standing figure as charming. The way she silently, motionlessly waited was reminiscent of a meticulously composed portrait. I mean, I can see the charm. It's just, if you ask me which one, I'd prefer Aoko, personally. Aoko took one look at her before instantly recalling that one word. Solitude.
まったくうちの男子どもは家に帰りもせず陰でこそこそやってるのはそういうこと。
Disgusted, Aoko barged through the gate. At this point, she would normally head home, but today she crossed the street toward the waiting girl.
あれなるは生徒会長様。くそ、追っ払う気なのかよ。痛いんならいつまでだっていさせてあげればいいじゃんか。てか怒られるのあの天使。よその生徒でも校門前にいるぐらいなら別に問題はないと思うけど。青子女子は容赦ねえからな。下手すると平手だぜ。
Boys ran their mouths behind her back. Not in the mood to shut them up, Aoko walked right up to the girl and offered an informal wave.
どうしたのアリス？こんなところに来たって何も面白いことはないって言ったのに。
ありえ
Aoko heard the boys by the gate lose their collective minds and did her best to ignore him.
あのことを確かめに。青子、あの人たち邪魔なんだけど。
分かってる。今追っ払うから。
In contrast to Alice's small voice, Aoko spoke loud and clear. Naturally, this was on purpose, so as to deal with the riffraff by the gate all at once.
会長こっち来んぞ。おい押すなよ。後ろのやつどけって。俺、いやでもあの子会長と知り合いなんでしょ。うまく会長に紹介してもらうとか。さすが一年坊主。まだ戦場の現実ってもんを理解していねえ。よし、死の間際までいい夢見ろよ。
Perhaps because too many of them had gathered in one place, the mob entered a frenzied panic as they tried to escape. Aoko addressed them all.
さーて、部活動があるわけでもなし、ただ家に帰るだけの帰宅部の皆さん、こんなところで何を集まってるのか教えてくれる？何しろ試験前だもの。身になることなら私も教えてほしいけど、まさかガン首並べて女学院のお嬢様を眺めてただけなんてことはないわよね。声をかける勇気もなくて眺めてただけなんてことは。
Damn! She basically stabbed him in their jugular. Not one of them was brave enough to admit that this hit the nail on the head. If any of them had such courage, they would have already been chatting the young lady up.
いや、僕教室にちょっと忘れ物が。こんなオチならダメ元で玉砕しとくんだった。天文部に行って双眼鏡借りるのどうだ。屋上からお顔を賜るとか。天文部にそんなのねえよ。あるとしたら野鳥同好会じゃね。
それ先月会長が潰したじゃん。鳥めでてる暇があるなら彼女作れって。
ああ、彼女作れですか。すみませんす。今日は裏口から帰るっす。くそ、じゃあな会長、また明日。
And with those oh so charming remarks, the boys scattered with their tails between their legs.
楽しそうね、青子。
あ、わかる？
Really? I mean, to be fair, I guess she would be because she's queen of the castle. Like a response slipped out all too easily. In truth, there were not that many bad apples up at Saki High, and dealing with them wasn't really that bad.
で、ここまで出向くってことは何か分かったの？
結界に残っていた気配の識別は、あとはここで確かめればいいだけよ。
そう。ん？アリス、いつからここに？
Oh my god. You better not tell me she spent the whole day here.
下校時刻から。
Ah. So she had been here for... Oh, wait, what? Oh, yeah, right. Damn, an hour? She didn't know... Well, then again, I guess she was focused on the blue envelope. Sitting in the same place for an hour would be taxing for someone as sensitive to the cold as Alice.
悪いわね、無理させて。
別に好きでやってることだから。
As she spoke, her black eyes were fixed upon the gate and the students passing through it. She had likely been observing the gate in this manner for the past hour.
私を待ってたわけじゃないんでしょ？今からでも付き合うわ。
I was not in dissent. If Alice was still here, it meant she had not found a witness yet. If she had found this student, Alice would have already gone home ahead of Aoko and begun to research the student's background.
私の方はダメだった。
She reported results of Tobimaru's investigation. Alice remained silent. That the conversation ended, leaving the two to silently endure the freezing wind. Well, then again, I guess the thing with Suzuki is like, it's only a theory, right? Again, she couldn't really like draw a conclusion because he wasn't into data. Silent stakeout dragged on endlessly. Students continued to pass the gate, each shocked at the sight of the unusual combo, and head home. After 20 minutes, I could let a sigh escape her mouth, perhaps from boredom, or the cold, or for both.
ねえ、アリス。帰り黎明に寄ってかない？
Aoko quickly turned to Alice to catch her reaction. That was the name of one of Aoko's favorite coffee shops. Offering no clear indication as to whether she was critical of Aoko's blaze attitude, or agreeing to her whims, Alice's gaze shifted ever so slightly. Aoko followed her stare.
あれ青崎も待ち合わせか
Yeah, I figured. Sudden voice took her off guard. There was only one person who spoke with this gentle, good-natured tone.
そう。やっぱそうなるわけか。
Yep. Turning her back to Alice, Aoko moved her focus to the newly appeared student.
それで、今日は何の用？
All politeness flew out the window. Already in a bad mood, Aoko's mood plummeted the longer she looked at Sojiro. The subtlety of her expression, however, was lost on him.
いやこれから駅前で水泳部の部長と待ち合わせなんだけどそのことでお礼を言っておきたくて。
ん？
That was completely unexpected. Thanks. Joining a club? I got a hunch that he was about to say something brainless.
ふーん。お礼って、お礼参りってこと？
ん
Fortunately, Sojiro was completely unaware of the more sinister implications to the word payback.
よくわからないけどそんな大したことじゃないよ。ただ水泳部は夏までそう忙しくないって話だったから。
Sojiro was just about to thank her for recommending a club that wouldn't have taken up much of his time. Aoko cut him off with an expression of disinterest.
当然でしょ。幽霊部員になりそうな生徒なんて紹介できないから。忙しいあなたでも務まりそうな場所があったから口に出しただけよ。
なるほど無駄がないね。
His open admiration for her sapped Aoko's will to fight. Finding a suitable club and negotiating with its captain hadn't been an efficient use of her time at all.
とにかくお世話になったからそれで礼を言っときたくて。
Sojiro gratefully dipped his head, but not before the flustered Aoko stopped him.
よしてよ。今あなたにそんなことされても迷惑だから。それで、水泳部はどう？やっていけそう？
An awkwardness infiltrated her previously sharp gaze. Sojiro was able to pick up on the odd change in her behavior, but could not divine its reason. So he simply started with what he knew so far and reported the most recent information he had.
ああ水泳部はクビになった。
Huh?
なんでよ！
Wait, seriously? Why? I didn't expect he would get kicked out of a club. I distinctly shuddered at the unexpected response. I mean, I would too. Like, how? Why? Human Jack in the Box. This unexpected development threw her mind into tizzy, and she momentarily forgot the complicated feelings she had been wrestling with. I mean, to be fair, it is surprising. Like, he just seems like too much of a goody two shoes. So it's like, how would he even get kicked out?
だって今から待ち合わせだって。
それはこれからヤシロギの温水プールに連れて行ってくれるからだよ。
Huh? Sutter stated this very matter of factly to the still wheeling Aoko.
話がつながらない。そこまでうまくいってるのに、どうして入部を拒否されるのよ、あんたは。
そりゃ俺が泳げないからだろ。
Oh. Wait, serious? Wait, you're telling me you've been in the woods your whole life and you've never had to go swimming? Well, then again, I guess that depends where in the boonies he's been, because if he's up in the mountains, then yes, I guess I can kind of get... I can reach up with her fingers and pinch the bridge of her nose as she processes his answer.
しずきくん、昨日の私の質問は覚えてる？走るのか泳ぐのか、どっちがいいかってやつ。
Oh, right, that question. I was wondering what she was actually trying to imply with that, but... So that would have been like, either you go to track and field or you go to the swim club. Because again, you wouldn't have to put as much, have as much attendance as you would in other clubs.
私の記憶は正しいけど、一応確認しておくわね。あなた、確かに泳ぐ方だって言ったけど。
ああ、昔から泳げないのは何とか克服したかったんだ。反対に走る方は得意だけど。
Oh my god. Her energy span, Aoko finally understood.
俺が1年なら1から鍛えてくれたらしいんだけど、あと3ヶ月で3年になる身分なのに、金槌の部員は雇えないそうだ。
Seriously? But you're so time to be a third year though. You can still compete as a third. Well, actually, no, because you'd actually be competing in even less time, right? Because of entrance exams for colleges. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I guess that makes sense then. Because, again, and this is just from my knowledge of anime, so I can't guarantee for sure that this is like how it always works, or if it's just that simple of an answer, the process for like clubs like that. But when you reach your third year, it's like once you're done with club, you're just done. Or sometimes you have to finish earlier because you need to focus on your studies to get into a good school, because they have entrance exams for those. Whereas like for us, it's like, sure, we have SATs and ACTs, but it's not like we actually take tests for those schools. Well, unless it's an engineering school, but that's a completely different thing. But I see. Wow, okay. So that's what it was. So he wanted to learn swimming, but okay. You know what? Fine, okay. I guess that makes sense, right? Because it's like, you would want to learn something new, but yeah, I guess they can't really do it, especially if they're in such a competitive mood, because true. Again, like I said, at least as if he was a first year, you could take the time for him to actually try to compete in his second year, and then if he had the potential, he could potentially be a good one to end in his third year. But with so little time in the second year now, since he really is a transfer in the middle of the second year, you kind of can't really do much with him. Because even if he tries to compete in the third year, it'll only be like at the basic level, and that won't really mean much.
けど部長が親身になってくれて、これから泳ぎを教えてくれることになったんだよ。
Oh, okay. So like, at least giving him not giving him a shot to join the team, but at least giving him the shot to learn. That's nice at least, because I mean, let's be honest. If any random person nowadays, they'd be like, fuck no, you're on your own. Go take some classes at like a pool or some kind of swimming school or something. This person actually recommending it, that's at least nice. Suzu's words were spoken from a place of joy, a fact that failed to reach Aoko.
はあ、つまり欠陥品を売りつけたってわけか。こりゃ水泳部の部長に合わす顔がないと。
Wow.
ちょっと待った。しずきくん、 水泳部の部長って。
She stopped herself short of a girl. She's afraid of how that might look, and she might not be able to rein herself in if she started.
もういいわ。気持ちは分かったから、どこか遠くにいてくれない？少し疲れてて、とてもじゃないけどあなたの相手はしていられないの。
飛び丸もそんなことを言ってたな。青崎は昨日と今日珍しく疲れてるって。何かあったのか？
ちょっとね。でもいいの。解決したみたいだから。それより、しずきくんはどう見える？私、そんなに疲れて見えるのかな？
Why she asked him this? Putting out things for no reason and on impulse? That wasn't usual for Aoko. Perhaps it was because she realized that this would be their last chance to have a normal conversation. After a few moments of contemplation, Sojiro conjured up a grin that cut straight through the tension.
そうだな。疲れているというより生き生きしているように見える。仕方なく畑を耕していた狼が久しぶりに狩りに出ることになって機嫌を上げている感じだ。
Damn, dude. How do you even know this? He seems so cheerful. He was so happy for her. You serious? Dude! Wow, literally the worst thing to tell her. Without thinking, Aoka's hands went to her cheeks. If what he said were true, then she was grinning from ear to ear. There's just no way she would have made such a mistake.
とにかくありがとう。じゃあ、また明日。
Perhaps still not comfortable enough to wave to her, he said his goodbye with sincerity in his voice and smile. Took his leave.
待って。こんな話があるの。聞いてから言って。
Aoko called out after him. Her voice was cold as she had admonished herself for having been somewhat affable earlier.
意味のない例え話よ。そうね。あなたが空腹で死にそうな時、目の前に同じように空腹で死にそうな2匹の動物がいるとするわ。しずきくんに銃をあげる。それでどちらかの動物を撃って。右はライオンで、左は子猫。選ぶのはあなたの自由だから。
It was a fable-like moral dilemma, especially the way in which it was cruel and rather preachy. The kind that if you thought hard about, you would never find an answer. So you answered quickly and calmly.
いや、撃たないと思うよ。だって自分の好きにしていいんだろ。それにほら、空腹ならお互い様だ。
Just the kind of nice guy answer he would give. Damn it. He wasn't the least bit fazed by the dilemma. Damn. Because also, yeah, now that I think about it, it's like, he didn't even act like this was such a strange question. Again, I don't think he knows it's her, but still, to be able to answer it like that. But it's not like he doesn't have fear at all, because he felt fear when he saw that lady at the pachinko parlor. He gave the most innocent response. So innocent, in fact, that would give anyone pause.
長生きするわ、あなた。
すごいセリフだな。そんなことを言われたのは多分君が初めてだ。
Tony's face was a smile wholly out of sync with his comment.
何よそれ。
Yeah, wait, what the? Sounds kind of sad, doesn't it? What? She regretted stopping him. If only she just watched him go, this conversation would never have happened. So Suzuki made his way down the sloped street. Today, just like every day, he probably had to work late again. Only Aoko and Alice remained. Alice doing what she could to simply blend in.
つくづくこっちのペースを乱してくれるわね。
Aoko clenched her right fist tightly as she cursed out loud, needed to prevent herself from screaming at the top of her lungs. Whether that scream would be directed towards Sojiro or toward herself was another matter entirely.
青子。
Aoko heard Alice's soft voice behind her. Aoko knew what she was gonna say. She had known for the entire time. Ever since Alice, having shown no reaction to any of the other students, changed her expression upon seeing Sojiro.
言わなくてもいい。あいつでしょ、目撃者は。
Her voice was cold as ice. It's the voice of someone talking about a complete stranger. The lion and the kitten. There were pros and cons to choosing either of these animals. The point being that she had asked him to choose one of them. Yeah. In terms of risk, the lion was the more dangerous choice. The instant the gun was pointed at it, there was a chance it would fight back. Yeah. How was your day, man? Oh, it's been good, AZN. I went to do a bit of shopping. All I did really get was a pair of shoes and some socks, but nothing else because there wasn't really much that interested me. Not that many good clothes, honestly, out for because I was looking for stuff for workout, but unfortunately there wasn't really much to get, so I was like, you know what, whatever, fuck it. And now it's gonna be annoying because the next 2 days of a tax-free weekend, I work both days, which is gonna suck. But I have to do it anyway, so I'll just have to deal with it when it happens. But yeah, how about you, man? How's everything going? Those who chose the lion required more courage, but any sense of guilt that came with holding a gun would be forgotten. Yeah, because in that point, it's like, you're the one most likely to be hunted, and it'd be like you fought to survive and you won. Lions were fierce creatures. A poor excuse to shoot an animal, perhaps, but one that certainly helped alleviate the guilt. Not bad, just chill. Okay. Yeah, because I'll be honest, there wasn't really a lot of people at the mall that I thought there was going to be. It just felt like any ordinary day over there. But at the same time, it's like, I get it, because people be busy on the weekdays, right? Even if it is Friday, people still have jobs and shit, so they probably would have waited until tomorrow so then they can go with the whole family or something. Or just have enough time to look around as much as they want, so I just figured I might as well do it earlier. But what about the kin? The weaker creature? It goes without saying that the kin would be the easier target of the two, but choosing it would be a disquieting decision for anyone. Even if the kin had no chance to survive, it was still too senseless to carry out. And to Aoko, Sojiro was that choice.
てっきり私もそうだと思ってた。
If she had felt that sinking feeling in the student council room, she ignored it. There was no getting around what must be done, she told herself. Until that is, Sojiro went and said what he did, causing her result to waver. But the discomfort in her chest did not step away from any guilt she may have felt. She could care less for Sojiro. He was weak, but incredibly easy to deal with. Yet, for some reason, she couldn't dispel her reservations. A transfer student who moved to the city from the middle of nowhere with no family to speak of. Few would notice if he were to suddenly disappear compared to a person of some renown. If she were to kill him, it would be as simple as wringing a cat's neck. And it all served to just piss her off. It was too lucky. Like everything was neatly handed to her. She wanted to just dropkick it right into orbit.
信じられない。私嫌がってる。これは違う。こんなの私じゃない。
Standing behind her, Alice heard all of her muttering. Nevertheless, she seemed to ignore it and said,
彼、首に布を巻いていたわね。
Yes, thank you. I was wondering if someone was actually going to notice it. A wholly unrelated topic. Aoko returned to her senses.
首？
Wait, what?
ええ。水泳部の首とかけていたのかしら。
That's what I was thinking, because that's what I thought. Like, maybe something happened to him back then. Because I was thinking it was going to be something along the lines like, maybe it's covering a wound from there. And it's like, he doesn't want it to like be out in the open, hence why he always has bandages on it. Because even if you put up your collar, there is still the chance that somehow people can see it depending on the angle or depending on an action he does. Yeah, maybe that's really why they kicked him out. It's like, this is like part of the story. Because, like I was saying, it's like, the person actually trying to teach him, and they said it at a heated pool, right? Or a heated bath. It's like, that's kind of a more private thing, especially if the captain's a girl, right? But doing something like this out of act of kindness, is it more like just as a fact of pity? Potentially? Hmm. It's possible. Honestly, I'm kind of surprised Aoko never even thought about it, but then again, I guess she just kept focusing on saying that she hated the guy to the point that she never really cared about his features. I also put much thought into this, as if it had a deeper meaning to her somehow.
そういえば、あいつ初めて会った時も首に布巻いてたっけ？襟を行儀よく締めてるから目立たないけど。
Yeah, I figured it's like it's a precaution that he puts on in case, right? Because sure, he keeps his collar all the way up like a normal student, but at the same time, he still went to the trouble of always putting bandages. And the thing is, like, he would always have to change it, right? It would have to be a force of habit. Because it also kind of seemed like, at least from the angle in this in this chapter, it seems to only cover his neck. I was assuming it either covered his neck or covered like the entire upper part of his body, or at least most of it, except for like his hands. But might not be the case then. The conversation turned out of nonsense. And though it solved none of her current problems, it did help calm Alka's frazzled nerves.
サンキュー。落ち着いたわ、アリス。それと、気合も入った。善は急げ。あいつが言いふらす前に決着をつけよう。
Pumped once more, Aoko turned her back to the school gate. For now, they'd return to the mansion and prepare for battle. I think Alice actually meant that question, though. I don't think she used it to calm her down. I think she was actually wondering.
いいけど、いつどこで彼を殺すの？
Yeah, she said she found an answer, but where would it be? She said quietly so as not to be overheard by anyone else. Normally, Aoko had to rein in that side of Alice, out in the open as they were. But this was far from a normal situation.
今日の夜、場所はとっておきの夢の国よ。
Oh! His other part-time job, right? The abandoned amusement park? She gave a fearless laugh. Strangely pleasant sound like the kind one would make when meeting their lover. At least I'm assuming that's what she meant, because he said he worked there. Chapter 4, all scenarios red. Oh, all scenarios red? Okay. Damn. I do want to go a bit more, but it's kind of late. I don't know. I kind of want to do a bit more, honestly. Because I feel like we're getting to the good stuff. Let's see. Is there an extra chapter? Aha, there is something. Hold up. Okay, so yeah, put back chapter 2. Is it a night? Oh, okay, no, this is the same one. Oh, because these are different scenarios in the day. I see. Heroes of the night. What if it's like characteristic? Oh, I pressed the wrong button, my bad. I'm like, why can't I check it? Okay, no. It's still the same. I see. So each of these are based on like the time of day that they're occurring. Yeah, because this is during the day. So that's why all those are the same. And this also stuff happening during the are kind of mixing into it, but it's like it's all the off time. Okay. I was getting kind of confused by it, but I get it. Do I do a bit more or do I end it? But then again, this is Night of Witches 1, so maybe we can do a bit more and then do part 2 next time. I don't know, because again, it's like I work tomorrow, but to be fair, I work at 10. You know what? I'm interested to see at least how it's gonna start out. We'll continue. Fuck it. I have to know what happens next. It's got me intrigued. But yeah, it does look like I'm right that it's the amusement park where he supposedly works at. 5. Night of the Witches 1. Sojo returned to his apartment on foot as per routine, under a blanket of clouds in the night sky. The rusty stairs of his apartment building changed with each step, or clanged with each step. Out the corner of his eye, he could see the bicycles parked by the apartment building's outer wall. He debated the pros and cons of a bicycle. How much easier life would be versus the expense, the convenience versus the necessity. But in the end decided one was not right for him just now. Clutching a bag of apples under his arm, took out the key to his residence.
あれば便利だけど、なくて。
Sorry about that, I was shaking some of my phone. He tilted his head in confusion. More and more he found himself preoccupied with such random thoughts when the real issue at hand was deciding what to do with the apples he had received. Replaced the paper bag by the sink and switched on the lights. It was just after 10 in the evening. With the end of term exams just around the corner, he had come home an hour earlier than usual. As he made back for the kitchen to pick up one of the apples to snack on, he found an envelope stuffed in his mail slot. The envelope had no name, return address, or stamp. Inside was a single piece of paper that had only a sender's name and a short message. It read,
話があるので、今夜どこそこのここに来られたし、大事なようなので、来るまでずっと待っている。言うまでもなく、他言無用。
a concise set of orders neatly written. It was signed Aoko. She'd been considerate enough to enclose a detailed map of the meeting place. Puzzled, he cocked his head to the side, then headed out the door. Afterward, upon the room's sole tenant leaving the premises, the envelope burst into flames and evaporated without a trace. So it never existed in the first place. Ah, yeah. I mean, makes sense. You don't want to reveal that there was actually a meeting that happened. By the late 80s, Japan's post-war economic boom had somewhat stabilized and the city experienced a period of steady growth. The city's modernization marched on, and the Japan Railway's train station is about a new era neared completion. In Masaki's neighboring town on Yashirogi, a new symbol of its own was about to be born. Yashirogi bred in Kitsuland was Masaki's worst investment. Wow, okay. Years later, it would have been dubbed the fool's gold of the economic bubble, a relic of a bygone age.
この町には夢とか遮奪さが足りない。
10 years ago, Yashirogi's renowned Tokitsu baking company ran factories all across the nation. Its proprietor was a middle-aged gentleman, then age 56, by the name of Yurihiko Tokitsu, known affectionately by most as Toppan. He took it upon himself to begin development of an estate on the outskirts of Yashirogi, and broke ground on a recreational wonderland that he had hoped to be the pride of Masaki City. The long-awaited opening came in 1981. After 3 years of investment, this local amusement park, full of all kinds of hopes and dreams, began its short-lived tenure. It covered more than 85 square acres. Its magnificent merry-go-round dazzled all who passed through the park's gates. Its roller coaster twisted and turned about the edges of a park like a arriving Japanese dragon. Its Ferris wheel, packed beyond necessity with gimmicks, was said to have tested the limits of modern engineering.
完璧だ。遊園地に必要なものは全て積み込んだ。
I know I've heard this old man's VA before in other things. I really do need to make a list someday, but I always just keep forgetting too, like a lot of other things. Old Yurihiko looked upon his creation and smiled. Only boosting his confidence was the fact that its grand opening was staged during a period of prosperity. springtime of the world. But, in spite of this, they splendidly miscalculated the balance between aspirations and sophistication. Its mascot, Kitsy, was poorly designed and appeared like a cheap knockoff. The park was stuffed to the brim with bread stands. Even it's impossible to navigate Mirror Maze and out of date from the start. Wait, what? They had bread stands? Dude, I know the company is about bread. I guess they probably did it to like save costs on food, but come on, dude. Yeah, and I guess depending on who you ask, it would seem like a cheap knockoff. And a Mirror Maze? Yeah, it's like, I don't know, man. Back in the old days, Mirror Mazes would be a thing, but nowadays, I don't really think so. There are no dreams to be had at Kitsyland, only nightmarish satire. Numerous trade magazines lambasted Kitsyland's shortcomings. Customer attendance declined. There was even an incident where a 6-year-old strayed from his mother had an accident and nearly died. Oh yeah, okay. I guess with an accident like that, yeah, it would fall down. 1986, 5 years after the park opened. The situation had grown from bad to worse. The park was hemorrhaging money. On top of everything, Yurihiko, who had bet everything on the success of mascot Kitsy, retired. Kitsyland's operations were officially in trouble. Seriously? And thus, amidst the scorn of nearly all residents of the area, ended Misaki City's one and only amusement park. What's more, perhaps best described as a footnote to this debacle, this self-proclaimed Parisian artist who designed the mascot, Toki Julich, was said to have snapped his brush in mourning over the closure of the park. Turning to the present, it was midnight and the Kitsyland of today was a shadow of its former glory. Like a doll abandoned in the corner of a toy box, the lonely park was illuminated only by the light of the town that continued to live around it.
なるほど。
Sojiro closed the Yashiroki guidebook that he had picked up on the way here. The story of its history was almost difficult to believe, but he supposed this is what people refer to as an entropy. The park's front gate was unlocked. When he worked here the previous time, the iron fence was locked shut with a rusty chain. But the chain was nowhere to be seen, the gate left ajar. Following the map drawing the letters, Sojiro quickly made his way inside.
急ぎのようなんだろうけど、こんな夜中に何なんだ一体。
He complained, quite out of character of him. It was probably because in spite of his naivety, even he knew that something was amiss. Though the park was abandoned, this was still trespassing. Unlawful entry, larceny, burglary. These are certainly not things or perhaps crimes that Sojiro was proud to do, but...
すまない。お金は払えないんだ。ただで入って申し訳ない。
Really? That's the thing? Money apparently was why his conscience was gnawing at him. Dude, I swear, this dude always has a way of thinking of other things when it's like, you're not thinking of the main thing. Clapped his hands in apology toward the statue of Kitsy, under whose eyes the pain had begun to aptly dissolve. Sojiro passed the mascot bleeding red paint from its eye sockets and began to walk the night park. The building's colors have faded. The collection machines has rusted. The man-made residents no longer felt the passage of time. Even the ghosts themselves could not endure the disparity between this forsaken place and its previous grand stature. It was like a fossilized dream. These were the ruins of a paradise both created and abandoned by man in reality. The economy had stabilized, and the standard of living was on the rise. Nobody was overly concerned with the future. These were the remains of a wild and exciting era. His breath turning to white wisp before him, Sojiro continued through the abandoned amusement park. Though for the human presence, this was not nearly as frightening as the darkness deep in the mountains. City suburbs can take many different forms, but Kitsyland was unusual for an amusement park, insomuch as it had been built adjacent to a residential district. The park was surrounded by a forest, but even that ultimately was man-made. It was no different from the curtains of a classroom window. If he were to scale the iron fence encircling Kitsyland and break through the 20 yards of forested trees, he could make it back to a familiar townscape. Though the amusement park tended to arouse dread in the city folk, the Sojiro was little different from the commotion and terror of downtown.
あれか。
Central Plaza was as silent as a grave. According to the map, the meeting spot was west of here. Waiting for Soldier at his destination was a rugged, imposing, magnificent castle towering before the backdrop of a cloudy night sky. Even for an abandoned park, it was a remarkable structure. The roller coaster and the Ferris wheel were loud, intense attractions. This was comparatively quiet and easygoing. It's one of Kitsune's three iconic structures, and, in a way, the wicked fortress that guided this paradise down the path of the closure. Generally speaking, amusement park mazes generally fell into one of two categories: labyrinths, which disorient visitors with their sheer size, and mirror houses, which disorient visitors with optical illusions. Many of the labyrinth's guests enjoyed the brief sense of adventure that it afforded. Over the years, however, it would be usurped by the ever-increasing thrills of new attractions. Such was the way of all trends. Curse of fads. Yeah, because that's the thing, it's like, it's a thing that you could put in old amusement parks, but it's not something that you could do, like, you can't really imagine trying to do that today and it would work. Like, a haunted house is something completely different with, like, how, gore and monsters and that has evolved, but a subject that just always stays the same can't really evolve anymore, and by that point we just lose interest much more quickly. The new must give way to the newer. On the other hand, the House of Mirrors was a time-honored, beloved staple. Even within the confines of a classroom's dimensions, well-placed mirrors and well-directed light could both perplex and delight its visitors. And figuring in the cost of maintenance, a well-designed House of Mirrors could far outlive the labyrinth preference. Even if both types faded into obscurity, they would remain a staple of what constituted an amusement park. However, that didn't mean that combining them would produce double the fun. Together, they transfer from entertainment into an uncanny realm from which those who dare to step within could never leave. In a similar sense, Kitsy's mysterious tour castle was the park's very own otherworld. Indeed, 5% of visitors ended up requesting staff assistance to get out. Modeled out the European castles, it was greater than a football field in length. The interior was further split into 3 floors. 2 floors above ground and 1 below, lined with mirrors from top to bottom, equal parts complex and vast. The maze demanded at least 30 minutes, even from veterans. One visit was all it took to be struck by catroptophobia for hours. This labyrinth that now stood in Sojiro's way.
真っ暗ってわけじゃないな。電気とかついてるんだろうか。
It seemed that Sojiro, unaware of what a house of mirrors even was, concerned himself only with its lighting. He checked the letter from Aoko once more. The letter read, "I'll be waiting in the first floor lobby at a house of mirrors." The meeting place was definitely in here. There was something to see by, at least, as he could just make out light faintly through the open doors. Putting aside his suspicions, he headed toward the entrance. The sound of his steps against the brick-laid path echoed faintly. It was far from the hustle and bustle of the city. The park's clocks no longer made tick nor talk. The winter's bite no longer blew in the night. But within the silence, the stillness that would cause any onlooker to hold their breath, Sojiro stopped abruptly at the entrance of the House of Mirrors.
ところで青崎、そんなところで何してるんだ？
He called out, turning back toward the plaza. Sound rang out as if someone had dove behind a garbage can and fell to the ground in their haste. Short silence and what? Wait, what? He sensed her? I see. So they needed him to get to the center and then they would close him in. So she actually was outside. Damn. How the hell do you know that? For a moment, the abandoned park returned to its previous hush. The sign of her having been exposed, the girl appeared from her hiding place.
Oh,
like the fit. His voice sounded his as he took in the sight of the girl's familiar face and unfamiliar attire. This Aoko with her long hair flowing in the breeze was different from the Aoko that Sojiro knew. Resolute stance and posture she took exuded the strength of her will. She stared directly at him with a sharp-eyed, piercing gaze. Her eyes were glowing with a dim phosphoric light, enough to give Sojiro a pause that he might be hallucinating. Icy coldness and a girl's strength. Sojiro lacked a sense of danger, but his sense of imbalance caused even him to feel the malice in the air. It was as though the Yukiona spirit of folklore had climbed out from a ghost story and appeared here in reality.
青崎
Instinctively, Sojiro took a step back. Surprised, he was starting to feel concerned. An unpleasant premonition rose to the surface, bringing with it a sense of anxiety. In spite of this, he felt obliged to honor urban etiquette by seeing if she was alright.
その顔を見るに何かあったのかと一応聞いておくんだけど
Without acknowledging him, Aoko took a step forward. Her figure, this atmosphere. Sojiro found himself recalling a recent memory. His twisted and knotted apprehension melted away and was replaced with a growing realization. The girl before him was very similar to someone he had seen before, that night in the park, though he'd only seen her from behind. With increasing certainty causing him to swallow nervously, he noted that they might as well have been identical.
何をしていたかって話なら見ての通りよ。ここで獲物が通り過ぎるのを待ってたの。あなたが入ってから私も入って逃げ道をなくすつもりだったから。
Aoko said, perturbed by the swift change in plans.
そうか待ち合わせ場所は合ってたんだな
Sojiro was mildly relieved that he had not gone to the wrong place. It was unclear whether he felt confident about dealing with what was to come, or if he had simply failed to grasp the hopelessness of the situation. Aoko ignored his obtuse response and continued.
私はね、しずきくん。嫌いな人とか憎い人とかは人並みにいるんだ。ただ、ちょっと変なのが敵になるやつの条件でね。
Cold emotion burned in her eyes. Her feet had already moved one step closer to Sojiro. His sense of foreboding was growing stronger. Wondering if what he had sensed was bloodlust, he retreated another step. Continuing so, they maintained a distance of just 15 feet.
昔から私は嫌いな相手でも敵でも逆に好きな相手を敵だと思うこともあった。理由は単純。
She held her right arm out. The light about her was no illusion.
当たり前のことだけど。私は私の感情を乱すやつが敵なのよ。
Her arm moved again. It was instantaneous. Sylvie shot past Sojiro in the blink of an eye, missing him by just a foot to his left. For his eyes, a blue light, something akin to a fireball, had ignited from nothing. He finally understood what was happening.
ちょっと待った今のは大変見覚えがある
外したか。
Fist-sized hole of a blue light had made in the house of mirrors crackle and smoldered. A shot like that could easily cave in a human skull in addition to burning it to a crisp.
ああ、こんな射程で外すなんてアリスに見られたら自殺者ね。でもこれで分かったでしょ。二度目だものね。あなたにとっては。
Backed away swiftly. Things were beyond incomprehensible. It's close to losing the ability to think at all. All he could make out was the figure of the dependable student council president. At least what he thought was the president. Memories of the park that night 2 days ago. He never experienced anything like this. Though most people living in a civilized country would have never seen anything like it either. A lethal weapon that could kill with nothing more than the pull of a finger had a way of suspending the ability of its target to determine between not just good and evil, but dreams and reality, past and future. The more peaceful someone's life had been, the stronger that suspension was likely to be. All that one could think about was the fact that they were alive at that very moment. It's as if he was an unwritten character on a blank piece of white paper. There was no before, no after. It's only what came next. It's a very common thought process for anyone staring down the barrel of a gun.
あ、命乞いはやめてね。意味ないから。でも、恨み事ならご自由に。殺す側の義務として一言一句聞いてあげる。
Saying it was pointless, she made it sound more like she would not listen to what he had to say. The soldier was in a state of shock that it did not even enter his mind to speak up. All he knew, for reasons unknown, was that the girl in front of him wanted him dead.
嘘つきにも程がある。飛び丸のバカ、何がそんな生き物はいないだ。実際いるじゃないか、こんなお化けみたいなのが。
Soldier felt that if he had said it out loud, the second blast would come even more quicker than the last, so he considered himself. Smart boy. His mental expletives stirred his mind from paralysis to mere panic. This response came not from confidence, however. Someday out of the blue, someone is going to kill me. While it may have seemed like a baseless belief to hold,
そうだった。都会には殺人事件がある。ルールを破れば殺されるのは当たり前だって、ちゃんと教えてもらってた。
the soldier, the situation seemed to perfectly align with his inexperienced understanding that the city was a coldly pragmatic place. As far as he was concerned at this moment, being killed by a classmate was not something to be so surprised by. In a society where murder was possible, he was able to accept this sort of situation as natural. Of virtually no concern was the series of events that led to Aoko's aggression toward him. The only thing that truly confused him was Aoko's blue fireball. Swallowed with an audible gulp. To anyone who may have been watching, it was the response of her victim, paralyzed by fear.
そういうことよ。ようやく理解してくれたわね。多くは語らないけど、あなたにはここで死んでもらう。魔術は隠匿するものなんて言っても、そっちには関係のないことだし、単に運がなかったって思えばいいわ。大事なのは、私があなたを殺したってことだけだから。
Done talking, Aoko once again lifted her right arm. There was a hum like a machine. Blue light began to revolve about her right arm beneath her sleeve. It's taking longer than last time, leading Soldier to believe that it was going to be much stronger than the attack that was still scorching the wall behind them. Realization caused his panic to heighten.
いや、なんだ、つまり始末するとかしないとか、あの夜のお化けは青崎だったとか、都会は本当に込み入ってるとか、そういうことじゃなくて。
His thoughts became jumbled. His heart pounded like a hammer. There's no time to be standing still. He wasn't sure the girl in front of him was really human. More importantly, even if he could accept the events unfolding before him, when all was said and done,
待て、人殺しはいけないんだぞ。
even if it was a fact of life in the city, Soldier was not about to lie down and die.
分かってるわよ、そんなことは。
Soldier screamed so entirely oblivious was just a thing to evoke Aoko's full wrath. Aoko fired a barrage of magical blue bullets. In an instant, Soldier dashed into the shadows behind him, to the entrance of the House of Mirrors.
なんだい、今のなんだ。
He darted feverishly down the hall. At her mere feet, he was left completely out of breath. Suda was shocked at seeing yet another attack, fiercer than the first, he had never seen in his life, because he couldn't shake the thought that if he had moved even a second later, he would be dead. He couldn't afford to stop. The sound of merciless footsteps closed in behind him.
助かった。ここならなんとか。
He threw everything into his legs as he sprinted. A straight narrow passage about 60 feet long connected the entrance to the main lobby. At this rate, if he could just make it to the lobby, he was sure he would be able to find as many hiding spots as he needed.
助かった。
He arrived in a large open space. First floor lobby. There were 3 passageways. One led to the basement. One connected to the first floor maze. The other was a set of stairs leading to the second floor. Didn't particularly care which one he chose, so trusting his intuition, he made a run for the first floor maze when he smacked his hand to a transparent wall.
鏡。
ええ、面倒だけどそれならフェアでしょ。追いかける方にも逃げる方にも有利不利がある。
A somewhat cheerful voice echoed in his direction. There was no need for Sojo to even turn around. The very same mirror he had crashed into, he could see Aoko Aozaki's figure slowly
そ
approaching.
れと1階の奥にある出口は封鎖しといたから。結界じゃなくて物理的に。やりすぎて封鎖っていうより瓦礫？土砂崩れ？どっちでもいっか。とにかく下手に出口に近づくと崩落に巻き込まれるから。生き埋めが嫌なら近寄らないことね。
Panic by the impending footsteps, Sojo gripped for the wall. You see the stairs to the second floor. He didn't understand what Aoko had meant earlier, but he at least knew that the first floor wasn't going to save him.
ま、私としてはそっちのが助かるけど。形式上、事故死の方が後始末とか楽だから。
Behind him was the creature beyond words. She did her idle taunting, she lifted her right arm ostentatiously. And from above her clothes, one could see some kind of strange, incongruous pattern upon her body. The veins beneath her skin made it seem as though something human was circulating her body. Without a pity or repulsion, Sojo stopped for just a moment. His pursuer evaded his gaze.
ああ、これ？普段は塗り薬で隠しているんだけど、今日は特別。魔術刻印って言ってね、魔術師の証みたいなものよ。ほら、光が回ってるでしょ？これがさっきのスナップ。わかりやすく言うと弾丸の元。今日は調子いいし、私魔力を効率よく使うのだけは自信あるし。うん、あと30回ぐらいかな。
Perhaps she was on an emotional high for her voice to become friendly. The substance of the conversation could not have been any more unsettling, however.
そもそも何を言っているかよくわからないんだけど、青崎。
わからない？段数はあと30発ってこと。そこまで逃げ切ればあなたの勝ちよ。とりあえず今日のところはね。
今日はって明日もあるのかな。
Ako's expression increased to a scowl at his behavior. Though he was panicking, it seemed that deep down he still did not feel the full weight of the crisis. She knew he still didn't get it.
宣言はしたわ。自由時間はこれでおしまい。まだ罵り足りないだろうけど、ま、その手の時間はキリがないしね。この辺りで諦めて。
It appeared Aoko had prepared this theatrical dialogue ahead of time, not to allow her opponent time for futile pleading, but to give him the time to curse her as killer. Such forthrightedness was her modus operandi. With his victim, however, it was not going as she had hoped.
とにかくそういうことだから。じゃ、狩りの時間と行きましょうか。
Her voice was void of emotion, and her eyes ruthless as they bored into her prey. This time, Sojo finally accepted that he was going to die. Sound as the dead had stepped into the remnants of a dream that had long since seen no visitors. There's no wind this night, nor a soul to be seen. Still, I heard the echoes from within, clasped its hands together, and grinned. Its form, with hands clasped, resembled that of a budding tulip. Bearing this artificial flower reflected in the cloudy mirror of the ticket attendant's office next to the gate. Next to it stood a display board corroded by years upon years of rust. Oh, is someone watching? Number of visitors today. 2. Number of... The board of graffiti crudely scrawled upon atop one of the words. was replaced with deaths. The records board had long ago fallen to disrepair. After taking a full 10 seconds to digest what it was looking at, it made its own revision. Number of visitors today, 3. Number of deaths today, 1. Oh! Oh, this is the person in red? Or is that the same woman from Earth? I mean, it looks like I see a shadow of someone, but I don't know. Doesn't look like the same person unless, like, maybe she let her hair down. Oh, shit. That's not good. At her penny this number with her index finger, she smiled like a flower. She began to walk toward the source of the sound. That's not good. It had been 10 minutes since its rhapsody had begun to echo from the House of Mirrors. Amusement Park's entrance returned to as it was before, soulless. In the end, even if Sojo had been the luckiest man alive, there was no way he should have been able to escape. The question, however, was how much of this was by design? How much was sheer coincidence? Even Aoko, who had made all the arrangements, had no answer. Indeed, there were only 3 things she could say. It was taking longer than expected. It was putting up more resistance than she had anticipated. What do you mean he's taking more resistance? He's just running. That's common sense for anyone. And that choosing the House of Mirrors had been a mistake. She had really screwed the pooch on this one. The location itself was an excellent choice, as the House of Mirrors was perfect as a hunting ground. But seeing her own incompetence reflected in the mirror was the beginning to grate on her. Wait, what? The moment Aoko's right arm began to glow, Sojo made a beeline for the staircase in front of him. A strawberry series of blue flashes lit the room behind them. Hunter calmly followed her prey, and the prey desperately ran for his life up the stairs.
注文通り。そうでなくっちゃお膳立てした甲斐がない。
In stark contrast to Sojo's frenzy escape, Aoko walked briskly up the stairs. She elected not to run after her prey in order to maintain a set distance. As she lacked confidence in her accuracy, she beat a much challenge as Sojo bull rushed her and went down fighting. But at a distance of 30 or so feet, he posed no threat. By the time her prey drew near, she could fire 10 shots and hit with at least 4 of them. The positioning just a moment ago hadn't been ideal. This distance and a space this open, there was a chance, however small, it could turn into a fistfight if he flanked and charged her. Currently, Aoko's best weapon was the bullets from her right arm. If she was going to capitalize on that advantage, it was in her best interest not to close the gap between them. If there was a good time to approach, it was only after her prey had become exhausted and lost the will to continue. Would she pierce his leg? Shoot him in the back? Perhaps he would just give up after losing himself in the labyrinth. The hunt would end when her target sustained some sort of injury and became unable to run. At Sojo's end, he could barely bite back on screaming as he bolted through the maze. Even running a straight line had become difficult, much less searching for an exit. The corridor stretched out far before him. Or so the mirrors blocking the path had made it seem. Panicked, he made a turn to the right. Clutching his head with his right arm, Sojo led with his left, hopping through the air to see whether there was anything in the way. He dove down the hall to the left, nearly dodged the bullets targeting his life. Urged on by the sound of approaching footsteps, he ran without thinking. The last one was close. Closer would have meant his life. He caught the odor of burnt hair from the back of his neck. It's very lucky. Or perhaps very unlucky. If he were actually lucky, he would not be in this situation in the first place. The second floor of the House of Mirrors was structured like a giant spiral. While left started from the outside wall. Eventually it would lead to a dead end. The more he tried to escape, the more cornered he would become. So they were trapped in a twisted guillotine. Stifled screams threatened to leak out his complaints. No matter what he did, he was going to be killed. His struggling merely served to prolong the inevitable. Yet he ran. No matter how many mirrored walls he rammed himself into, he ran. Even after crashing so hard that his forehead bled and he saw stars, he ran. Pain shot through him at every turn. The more frantically he ran, the more intensely he smashed into the invisible walls. His Bonnie began to understand this rule and begged him not to run anymore. His breath was already ragged after sprinting a couple hundred feet. No matter how he thought about it, this wasn't normal. It's way too crazy. Not just a bad joke. Turn around now, she would apologize to him for taking it too far. His mind gone blank. His body continued to slam into the mirrors again and again. His feet slowed as they began to believe that perhaps it really was all a joke. But then he felt a chill. Touch of death upon his neck. Not being an exaggeration to say that Sojiro knew this kind of terrible chill far too well. Ever since he arrived in the city, he had come face to face with more than one or two near-death experiences. Someone who didn't understand city life, his present predicament was not unlike when he experienced the traffic on the streets or the commuter rush on the station platform. He was far from an innocent babe unable to comprehend life or fear. Rather, everything he had ever known became irrelevant when he was flung into a completely different cultural sphere. Even society's promises of safety, something urbanites took for granted, were threats unknown. So he was used to this already. Though if he were to be honest, he was dissatisfied with some things. Things superfluous to necessity. This world was overflowing with valueless things. And they were all dangerous in some way. Even the everyday necessities sold at the convenience store were, as far as he was concerned, amazing tools. Civilization had raised the standard of living so high that it had numbed humanity's sense of danger. City's constant pursuit of wealth and convenience was a poison to a country boy like Sojiro. He didn't have the capacity to accept those conveniences. That was possible for such conveniences to easily and suddenly be misused and cause unintended accidents had always made him anxious. Why? He had to wonder why he was even here. How ironic. It took the real dread of death to finally make him realize. A divine revelation, but he failed to understand until now. He'd always had to expect the unexpected. Yet if experiences were more common than one might think. To begin with, safety was something that came at a price. Being alive meant that the opposite was always lurking around the corner. It's just like a street light at night. When the sun rose, its illumination would naturally disappear. Another barrage of strange projectiles whizzed mercilessly by him. He recalled in the back of his mind the charred remains of someone at the hands of the blue flame 2 nights prior. Somehow, this situation reminded him of a horse being led by a dangling carrot. But now he lifted his head and continued to run through the labyrinth. But for what purpose? Though he knew the pain in his chest was very real, he felt disconnected from it. The sky visible through the skylight was a muddy ultramarine, no longer resembling the one he knew. He managed to calm himself. He began to laugh in despair as though something ever precious had been broken. But he had become meaningless anyway. Even so, his legs somehow made their way forward at the sight of a reflection in the mirror. Like game of cat and mouse, he fled through the labyrinth of mirrors. Then after 4 minutes, a strangely unreal tension ended. The knife shot of blue light hit inches away from him. Exploded the moment it made impact, launching Sojiro into the opposite wall. While the fire he had taken thus far, this shot indisputably brought him closest to death. Groaning, he collapsed to the ground. His back was on fire with pain. He wasn't bleeding and was lucky he could still even scream. Yet his body refused to move. Physically and mentally, he still had something to spare. The pain was not so bad that he couldn't get back up. It was just that there was a skylight above him and he could glimpse the dark of the night sky beyond. Fear that overcame him was a raw, selfish bout of grief. Oh, it was just so cruel. Had to stare at that for the remainder of whatever short life he had left. Sojiro's ragged breath slowed. For all intents and purposes, he had given up. Given up fleeing from the pursuing footsteps, and perhaps even the root of all his problems.
まあ、青崎に殺されるならいいかな。
He felt things that, in any other circumstance, he would never feel. Incidentally, without exaggeration or embellishment, this was the only mistake he had ever made in his entire life. Say vaguely into the night sky above, Sojiro listened as the footsteps drew near.
ギブアップ
It was the closest her voice had ever been to him. Perhaps feeling that he really had given up, she approached his collapsed form. Dark mirror-lined corridor, he could not make out her expression. Without a word, Sojiro raised his eyes to meet his murderer.
返事がないならそれでいいけど。調子狂うわ。普通どうして殺そうとするのかぐらい聞くものじゃない？
His eyes widened in bewilderment. As she had mentioned it, he realized that would have been the obvious question to ask. He more or less picked up on the fact that he was being killed for learning some secret, but it was human nature to want to know more.
そっか。それは、そうなるな。
A simple affirmation. His face was a mixture of resignation and a forlorn longing. He thought for a moment before.
でも言う必要はない。聞きたくないんだ。そう。
His response was clear, rather gallantly so.
そう。じゃ、殺すけど。死ぬの怖くないの？
怖いに決まってる。何より痛そうだ。
His face turned around as he objected, to which Aoko frowned. As nonchalant as he could be, he was honest about his feelings.
そりゃ怖いでしょ。私だって怖いと思うし。でも悪いわね。我慢して。人でなしと罵ってくれて結構よ。今の私は本当にその通りだから。そういった意味じゃあんたと同じ。普通の道徳がないのよ。だから必要なら人も殺せる。
Sojiro's finger twitched in response to her indifferent tone, as if to say that despite having given up on just about everything, his body could not let those words slide.
人殺しなんて良くないぞ。
分かってるって言ってるでしょ。
She raised her right hand, knife and a crest illuminating her face. It goes without saying that her expression was unchanged. She wasn't crying, nor was she smiling. She was a young woman who had excised her feelings. Deal with it was another thing Sojiro could not let slide. He could read on Aoko's face that she was not herself. She was in pain, to a degree he had never seen her in.
すまない。ちょっといいかな。
何？ここまで悲壮感を盛り上げておいて、やっぱり逃げるなんてのは却下よ。
He unconsciously smiled at Aoko's ruthless counter and breathed a sigh of relief. He'd misread the pain he saw in her face. This was the same Aoko. He laughed out loud in genuine joy, like that most other people would have taken as an insult.
遺言でも聞いてあげようと思った私が甘かった。っていうか、今の小バカにした笑いがあんたの遺言ってことで OK？
いや、そうじゃなくて、あそこにいる人は青崎の友人なのか？
Out of nowhere, Sojiro pointed behind her.
はぁ？
Aoko thought it must have been that old, overused distraction technique. This had been a Japanese comedy act. This would be the part where she gave him a whack or a paper fan. But after giving a second thought, she realized Sojiro didn't have the capacity for understanding old or even new tricks.
あんた、何言って。
Oh, oh, it is a doll. What? Perhaps his honest disposition had been to his benefit. Without thinking, Aoko gave in to her curiosity and turned her gaze toward the direction which his finger was pointed. And there, something that should not have been there in the maze, sitting with her creaking wooden smile, was the ominous, creepy, uncanny figure of a girl.
人形？
An unusual figure with 2 arms and 2 legs stood silently in the darkness. If only for a moment, its beauty, which was even apparent from afar, dulled the insanity of the current situation. What the fuck? Extend, extend, extend. And the unknown threat made Aoko freeze on the spot. Avoiding it didn't even occur to her. Humans possess intelligence and knowledge, but when confronted with the unknown, they fail to process what to do and... A shriek escaped Aoko's mouth. The magical attack crossed the 30-foot gap in an instant. The arm of the girl who had appeared at the rear of the corridor was slender and quick, expanding to a near possible length, striking Aoko from behind. Aoko crashed to the wall as she fought back with an anguished whimper. The attacker retracted her arm.
Aozaki!
Sojiro sprang to his feet. He darted to his side and used all the strength he could muster to get her to her feet. He couldn't believe how light she was. In Sojiro's mind, Aoko was an extraordinary individual. He expected that if he were ever to touch her, it would be apparent she was far stronger than he. But in reality, she felt about as heavy as you would expect a 100-pound girl to feel. Meanwhile, that thing continued to reel its arm, as if it were some sort of mechanism. It extended more than 30 feet from the elbow joint and clinked as it returned to its previous shape and size.
大丈夫か？やめてよ。わからないわ。なんでそんな顔できるの？
Aoko tore her hand away from Sojiro's. Suddenly she felt her knees buckle from under her. Sojiro caught her before she could hit the ground and helped her to her feet.
無理するな。で、あいつは知り合いか？
Looked back at the eerie shadow 30 feet away as it finished retracting its arm.
そうね。似たようなやつとは命をせめぎ合った仲よ。でも痛いっちゃ痛いけど、打撲だけ。あれだけ絶好の奇襲をしておいて、それともこの距離じゃ当たっても致命傷にならないなんてあるわけないか。何か別の意味があると見るべきね。
She tried to steady her breathing as she assessed the damage under her back. Pain was quick to fade and her breathing returned to normal. For the time being, her motor functions were no longer hindered. But the real damage was elsewhere.
青崎、あれ。
分かってるわ。黙ってて。
Blue light glowed across the gloom. The magical energy generated by her breathing was accumulating in her right arm. If magical energy was the fuel, the formula was the igniter. For Aoko, this was little more than a reenactment of 2 evenings ago. Next time the puppet extended his arm, Aoko would fire a magic bullet as fast as she could. Oh, did it maybe somehow interfere with the formula? Like that's what its purpose was, to make contact? Battle at approximately 30 feet. As long as Aoko could secure a 2-second window, she could create a counterattack to end this duel. It made its move. Its head tilted down, there was no expression to be seen. The darkness, its apparent age was impossible to make out. To humans, the puppet was not dissimilar to a faceless ghost. Its left arm slowly came up with a grinding sound. Its movements were dull as if the joints were rusty. The right arm, which had been extended earlier, hung at its side. The puppet's mouth was hidden by long locks. The sense was that it was smiling.
さっきと用途が違う。あれが本命。しずきくん、どいて。
Oh, does it have different effects on each one? She threw herself into Sojiro and extended her hand. His arm extended at that very moment. The timing was impeccable. A single second, Aoko's snap bullet scored a direct hit on the puppet's arm, throwing off its trajectory and sending it crashing into the puppet's body with a violent explosion. Or at least that's what should have happened had the magic formula been invoked. She barely avoided being struck once again. Her magecraft failed her, intuition took over, and she just managed to get away.
やられた。最初のはそういうことか。
She clenched her teeth in frustration, thoughts racing a mile a minute. Fight or flight. Only had one arm left, which would take time to retract. It's the best shot Aoko had at defeating it. She could evade the right arm just a fraction, she could get close enough to...
Vivo insomni, solitaire reputoresque inferis. Ictius meus obitus dies, et meus nativus dies, Teobeam.
What is this, Latin? Or a different language? A crackle echoed through the corridor. The poetic murmurs contained enough magical energy for Mage to perceive. The verse itself was... Ah, okay, it was Latin. But contained hints of a language of curses. Gonder. Ah, shit. Originally, they were words meant to curse a hated adversary. However...
Mea animae mortalis, otem eftura negata sunt. Manes sum, animam definire ambiguum est. Teodi et te am, conveniamus insomnio ipso.
The puppet was directing the words at itself. Curses beget curses. The victim calls out a curse on the assailant, creating a vicious cycle of negativity. Oh, I see. It had a curse on its right arm, and in doing so, when making contact with Aoko, cursed her right arm. I see, and that's how it interfered with her formula. Incantation was meant to do just that. However, this was ultimately a one-puppet show. And I see, that's probably why she's using a puppet, because it's a way to increase the chances of passing on a curse to someone else. Or whoever the caster is, but it sounds female. An unprecedented source of power akin to auto-intoxication. As unbelievable as it seemed, the cycle of curses had been turned into a perpetual motion device.
何それレベル高すぎじゃない
Aoko abandoned the idea of digging her heels in. It's time to flee with all due haste.
何してんのあんたも来る
She grabbed Sojour's hand and ran as fast as she could, deeper into the realm of mirrors. A crackling voice continued its murmuring behind them.
Proximi mich negligentes ferunt. Omnes nos peccantes fuimus. Et omnes nos edem fuimus. Omnes nos peccatores sumus. Venite domum meum. Lut simile somnium. Et pulvere simile quotidianum. Corprebo. Te judico.
Damn, we're still going? Come on, man. Let me go to sleep. Aoko fought against the pain in her back as she ran through the mirror corner. Damn, I knew I should have saved her for another time. But whatever, we're still doing it. She dragged Sojo by the hand.
Aozaki, 傷は
And yes, I know I could just save, but... No,
別に背骨がしびれてる程度よ
don't think about it.
内臓は平気だし出血もないみたい
She cursed inwardly at how much of a mess she felt, though. Unlike Sojo, Aoko did not run into any transparent walls. Thanks not to his superior sight, but rather preparation, she had hammered the layout of the building into her memory.
平気ってわかるのか
そりゃ自分の体だもの身体管理は基礎中の基礎よ
Ako's matter-of-fact answer contrasted with Sojo's nervous questioning. The corridor grew shorter with each and every left turn. At first, they were able to advance in a straight line for about 100 feet at a time. By now, they were forced to turn a corner every 50 feet or so.
あいつはあの夜の
多分ね同じタイプだと思う貴重なオートマタを惜しげもなく使い捨てるなんてよっぽどお金持ちなんだろうけど
He furrowed his brows. He was grateful that she was answering his questions, but baffled by the strange words she was using.
青崎ストップもう随分走ったぞあいつは曲がり角一つ分向こうだ少し休もう
His words suggested that he was still concerned about her injuries. She shook her head in irritation.
あの距離を狙ってくる相手に通路一つ分のリードは無意味よせめて二つ分に行くまで走るの
Yeah, because it can cover that, because even if we don't know if it can only do that whether it's standing still or when it's moving, it's still better to just be cautious that if it actually can extend it while it's moving, that's a very big threat. He nodded. With that matter settled, he asked.
なんで俺を連れて行ってるんだ
逃げられたくないからじゃないバカ
And saying curtly, Aoko glared at her naive prey. I guess so, because it's like you can't say that this person would also like not kill any witnesses, right? And we don't even know who's that person's intended target anyway, because they even changed the deaths to 1. So clearly only one of them is being targeted. They headed for the next corner. Legs began to slow as they rounded one more. She rubbed her back as she tried to catch her breath. Though Aoko had insisted she was fine, it appeared to have been bravado. Even the usually clueless Sojiro felt the desperation as they were in. He stood behind Aoko with his arms folded. While they had a moment, he tried to make sense of everything. First, Aoko had nearly killed him. Though he was saved at the last possible second, it was by the strange, twitchy woman Aoko had burned to ashes 2 nights prior. He could barely make it out that night, but he considered it a her because it looked female. The woman attacked, or her attack, wounded Aoko's back and forced her to flee. Aoko had taken Sojiro with her, claiming that the reason she did so was to prevent her prey from escaping. In other words,
青崎はまだ諦めてないんだな。
当たり前よ。あんなやつ、仮に2体と半分始末しても、あんた用の余力は残せるわ。
her tone was sharp, but even Sojiro could see that she was struggling to stay confident. The damage to her body was too much to afford her any optimism. Still, the fury in her eyes refused to accept their circumstances.
中がところどころショートしてる。あの右腕は回路を混戦させるジャミングってわけね。
Though the proper response would have been for her to tremble in fear, she did nothing but shake her fist in anger. The disruption of formula was only supposed to work on absolute beginners. If it had been her roommate, the arm would have been repelled the instant it hit her. The attacker's circuits burned out, rather than her own. Attempting to establish a link to the magic circuits of another mage was like presenting your heart on a silver platter. It'd be of no use in a battle against a superior mage. And yet her adversary had been designed to do just that. Coupled with the attacks on areas of Misaki under Ako's jurisdiction these last few weeks, it was a clear statement for the enemy, who had revealed itself as a fellow mage 2 days ago. In other words, the puppet saw Aoko as no threat at all.
敵ながら正確な判断だこと。
While she was still angry, the whirlwind of emotions within her started to fade. Her face was that of a hunter far beyond her years.
なんか俺の時より真剣だな。
まあね、あんたの時は遊びが入ってたし。
He wasn't sure whether to be happy or sad at that.
わからないことだらけで何を聞いていいかわからないんだけど、一つだけいいか。
She didn't respond. Her eyes were focused on the darkness before them. The sounds was heavy and the darkness was like a noose closing in on them. But he continued in spite of her indifference.
青崎はあいつも殺すのか。
Stillness fell over them. It was as if the gloom was pulling them in. A response. Breathing was the only sound echoing in the dim corridor. This is Sojiro forcing her to confront her sins, and the magician girl who continued to ignore him. Spent a few seconds seemingly frozen in time.
それがあなたのキーワードみたいね。
Aoko whispered in a lifeless tone. Her sigh was tinged with both resignation and contempt.
何？
独り言よ、忘れて。それと、言っとくけど、あいつは人間じゃないわ。信じられないだろうけど、自分の意志で動く人形なの。この前のも、今のやつもね。
He had honestly processed the information. Not only did he not doubt her story, but he seemed to have accepted it at face value.
なんか落ち着いてるわね、あなた。
まさかもう何が何だかわからないからあまり考えないことにしてるだけだ。
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, surviving comes first, and then everything else is
た
secondary.
だ人形に関しては別にどうということはない。
もしかして他でも自動人形を見たことあるとか？
都会の人形ってああいうものじゃないのか？
She barely stopped herself from falling to her knees. Of course. How could she have forgotten? Oh, I see. Let me guess. He had taken it as like this is probably just something city folk know. She was dealing with a bona fide natural born moron. As a student who transferred from the isolation of the mountains like an endangered species, out of lack of common sense rendered anything miraculous as mundane. If automobiles were moving hunks of metal, then moving puppets were nothing to write home about. Wait, that meant to him the incident from the other night hadn't been extraordinary at all. Might have even assumed it was an everyday occurrence of the city. In other words, she could have just written it off and he never would have pieced it together. Because, I mean, to be fair, he only realized it was her until now. Because he probably only assumed it was like whatever happened the other night. And he probably would have just assumed it was that same lady from before.
参った。いっぺん頭の中覗いてみたいっていうか、ほんと、ここまで来ると感心するわ。調子が狂うのも当然だった。普通は私に襲われた時点でもっと違う反応をするはずなのに。化け物とか、お化けとかさ。でもあなたにとっては、そういうこともある。で済まされてたわけなんだ。なんかバカみたいね、私。
His strained face returned to normal for a moment. It hit her. There had been another way to handle this without anyone getting hurt. But the damage had already been done. There were no do-overs in life, nor should there be. Her own mistaken assumptions had sent that situation spiraling out of control. But now that Sojiro was involved, she had to make sure that her secret was safe with him. Even if there had been another better option, that ship had sailed. Human relationships are ultimately driven by mutual misunderstandings. They were like tapestries, woven from mismatched intentions. Come on, please. Oh, come on! Break time was over. This said Aka was against Sojiro Suzuki. The first ever idle conversation had come to an end, not that they had a choice in the matter. It was a jarring murmuring from around the corner that cut it short. Oh boy. Okay, you know what? I think this is a good place to end for now, because clearly there's going to be more to this, but like I said, I got work in the morning, so. But damn, alright, finally, we get some actual magic action here. Wow, already being able to stop Aoko right off the bat. I mean, to be fair, I wasn't gonna say like she's overpowered or anything, because I mean, come on, we're just starting out. And like she said, she's finally starting out as a mage, but damn, to think she's already being cornered like this at the very beginning. Well, then again, this person has been pursuing her for a while now, or at least either her or Alice, so I guess it really shouldn't be that surprising. But still, interesting nonetheless. And yeah, it's like, how is this going to turn out? Because, I mean, he's still supposed to be one of the main characters, so it's like, how will they try to deal with this? Because then it comes the problem with, like, how do you tell this to Alice, right? Because, again, she seems to be a stickler for, like, the mage life, so how would you even get her to be like, okay, fine, we'll let him live for now? I don't know how that would work, but because even they would say, "Oh, but now he's being hunted down too." Then it's like, why is that a problem? We want him dead so that he doesn't spill the beans. So I don't know how that would work out, but it's definitely getting very interesting. But yeah, I'm gonna save this for next time, and then we'll do whatever is left of this, and possibly whatever is like the next episode or something. But still, things are finally starting to get intense around here. I'm loving it. It's still it's great that Sojo's not really acting out of character. He's still just kind of the same uh innocent idiot we all know and love. So it's good that it's like they're not trying to make it too drastic or anything too basic. So I can actually roll with this. But yeah, this will be the end of the stream for tonight, everybody. Like I said, I'll see if some way in the next couple days I can do another Honkai Star Rail stream, so then I can get closer to doing the collab story. But I don't know how long that'll be. But and like I said, I don't know if I'll have the energy in like these next couple days, but I'll try to at least. Okay, I'm gonna try my best to do it. Because also I'm gonna have to grind at least a bit in Tears of Berseria remaster before we reach the new area. So I'll try to figure something out in regards to that. And let's see, what else do I have to do? Right, I have to try to figure out when I would get back to doing Punching Grey Raven or if I would just put that on hold for a minute, or I don't know. Again, it's just something I'd had to figure out. But anyway, let me give a shout out to both RenewEF and AZ and Turtle169 for both showing up this stream. Great chatting with you both. But yeah, if you guys did enjoy the stream but already found the channel, please make sure that you follow. Much appreciated. Check out my YouTube channel, I post the VOD, subscribe as well. Join Discord, you guys not already. Links to all those are on the channel. But this has been Xander's Vice. I hope you guys have a great rest of your night. I'll see you guys next time.